Our main character is bored stiff at school, convinced everyone around him is just completely pathetic. They're all busy staring at some popular girl instead of actually training. He gets home, and you're not going to believe who ambushes him. The blow is massive. Leo just barely manages to block it. This attacker is no joke. She comes at him again, declaring she expects great things from him. Leo shoves her back and asks, "Mom, why are you going all out?" But this woman, Leo Plav, doesn't even hesitate. She just says, "I need to see if you're as good as you think you are, Leo Plav." Then she unleashes a powerful technique. An attack no normal kid could possibly dodge. She even worries the worst might happen, but you and I both know Leo is anything but normal. He dodges the blow and launches his counter. Seconds later, his mom is on the floor, a total defeat. Yeah, the kid is just as strong as he claims. His mother then asks if he still plans on joining Lumern Academy next year when he's old enough. That's the most prestigious academy on the entire continent. Rhea tells him he'll find worthy opponents there, so he'll need to step up his game. But with a cocky grin, Leo thinks waiting a whole year is just a complete waste. The Plav family isn't quite on the same level as the legendary Zeringer family. But the vice leader decides they're going to stay with them for a week. Celia, a prodigy herself, is not happy about it. But when she's brought to meet the head of the Plav family, Zeiss formally introduces Celia to Rhea and Dade. The young lady quickly returns their hospitality with a polite introduction of her own. And she expresses her thanks for letting them stay in their home. Rhea steps forward and takes a second to size up Celia. She notes the girl is a dead ringer for her father and uncle in both her looks and her attitude. Celia in turn notices Rhea's distinct black hair and piercing red eyes. It clicks instantly. Reina is a part of the Zeringer family. That makes her Celia's aunt. Later, Zeiss and Reina, who are brother and sister, finally sit down to catch up. During their talk, Zeiss mentions their recent trip to the Royal School of Dong, where they had been hoping to meet Leo. To their disappointment, they found out he'd already left. Uninterested in meeting anyone. Rhea apologizes for her son's actions, admitting his behavior probably seemed pretty disrespectful. Zeiss then asks his sister about Leo, wondering what kind of person he really is. Rhea speaks highly of him, saying Leo is unbelievably gifted. Her praise prompts Zeiss to question if Leo is truly worthy of inheriting the Zeringer flames. Now pay attention here, because this is where the real drama starts. Rhea makes it clear she isn't just speaking as a proud mother. Leo genuinely has the talent and potential to be worthy of the Zeringer legacy. Hearing this, Zeiss is incredibly intrigued. While he trusts her judgment, he feels he has to see Leo's power for himself before making his final decision. Later, we find Leo sitting quietly, deep in concentration. After finishing a short ritual, he declares internally that he has finally created a vessel strong enough to hold everything he needs. Leo thinks back on why he has avoided learning aura until now. The truth lies in the unique nature of his body. Embracing aura too soon would cause it to naturally adapt and specialize in one way. This would restrict his capacity to gather both mana and soul energy, two vital parts of his long-term plan model. He has a plan. Last time he saw what happens when power goes absolutely unchecked. If he'd truly mastered the abilities left by his fallen comrades, he wouldn't have caused his own ruin. So to stop history from repeating, Leo is going for absolute mastery, and you and I are about to see the first step of his journey. Taming his aura, but he's doing it completely his own way, not by the book. Before he can think any further, a familiar voice cuts through the silence, pulling his attention. He turns and there she is, Celia Zeringer, with a confident smirk on her face. She remarks that it looks like he's finally grasped the basics of training. Her words are dripping with sarcasm, but she then offers him a deal. She'll teach him swordsmanship, but only if he accepts her challenge. Meanwhile, Leo has no idea who this girl is, so she introduces herself as Celia Zeringer. The famous sword princess, to be precise. Now that introductions are over, Leo cuts right to the chase. He says he's honored by her consideration, but he has absolutely no interest in being taught by someone he considers weaker than him. Unsurprisingly, the princess was not happy to hear that. His words basically implied he was stronger than her, so Leo clarifies. In a real fight to the death, she'd probably win because he can't use aura. But a sparring match with swords only, that's an entirely different game. He was dead certain he could beat her, easily. And that did it, Cecilia's provoked. Now, pay attention to what happens when you challenge a princess. She snatches a sword from the rack nearby. She's ready to prove his confidence is nothing but pure, unearned arrogance by crushing him in a duel. As far as she's concerned, even if Leo had aura, there's no way he could win. She's just going to teach this boy a harsh lesson about the real world. She then adds that if she wins, for her week-long stay, he becomes her servant. Leo doesn't even blink at her condition. In response, he just asks, "And what if I win?" To keep it fair, she retorts, "If you win, I'll become your servant instead. The bet is on." Leo grabs a practice sword, and they jump right into the spar. He tries to strike her immediately, moving with some seriously impressive speed, but she dodges him easily. Still, she can't help but notice his speed is actually pretty shocking. Celia is confident this little trick won't be enough for him to actually win, though. They charge again, and Leo delivers a brutally heavy strike. The sheer power behind it completely overwhelms her. And I think you and I both saw that coming. When his sword hits the dirt, it shatters instantly, but he's not finished. He doesn't stop for a second, he charges again. The once arrogant woman is already starting to regret ever challenging him. She's certain she can't possibly block his next attack, so she braces herself to take the hit head-on. But to everyone's shock, she takes 0 damage. She used a magic armor in the final moment. This is completely against the rules of the spar, which was supposed to be about pure swordsmanship. But this arrogant princess won't admit the truth, that she couldn't dodge his attack, so instead she makes an excuse, claiming it was just a reflex. Leo immediately announces his victory. Saying the match is over, this stuns her, of course. She's not ready to accept defeat that easily. But Leo saw that coming, and trust me, what he does next is legendary. Bracelets that were suppressing his immense physical strength. With his very next strike, he absolutely demolishes her barrier. The girl is left completely bewildered, and trust me. Leo offers her 0 mercy. He lets her feel his true power, later strolling through the courtyard. Leo bumps into his mother, who quickly introduces him to his uncle, Zeiss. Leo gives a quick, respectful bow, which Zeiss returns, introducing himself in turn as the two of them shake hands. His mother then asks if he has met Celia. Leo just remembers her collapsing after their battle, totally overcome with fear. Before Leo can even explain, a knight approaches Zeiss with a report on the young lady. Zeiss seems intrigued to hear that Leo actually defeated Celia, and without even mastering aura, he personally commends Leo, calling it remarkable, but Leo just says that she simply underestimated him. Zeiss then asks about the bet Celia lost. Leo cheerfully replies that the loser has to become the winner's servant. So yeah, Celia is going to be his maid for the next week. Zeiss definitely finds that idea distasteful, but he knows the importance of keeping one's word. Still, he stresses that Celia comes from the prestigious Zeringer house. He cannot allow her to perform such menial tasks. He hopes Leo will just waive the bet. In exchange, he offers Leo something far more valuable. Now watch this, because our boy's response is epic. Leo rejects the offer flat out. He tells his uncle that this was a wager between him and Celia. As long as she carries the Zeringer name, she must face the consequences of her actions. His uncle then asks if Leo is willing to give up the chance to learn the Zeringer family's aura breathing method. Once again, Leo has a sharp comeback. He believes an aura technique given just to spare a niece from humiliation holds absolutely no real value. Since Zeiss sees no way out, he decides to get a little more aggressive, confronting the boy head-on. He reminds Leo he just declared he'd use a Zeringer heir as a servant and called their ultimate aura technique worthless. But Leo remains unshaken, completely unafraid of any consequences. And I know what you're thinking, this kid has guts. He calmly admits his uncle's words are true, then suddenly his uncle's tone softens. He politely asks Leo if he doesn't think his statements are a bit arrogant and discourteous. Leo repeats that he never intended to insult the Zeringers. He states that if he had received the aura-breathing technique as a prize for beating Celia, he would have accepted it in a heartbeat. However, he will not accept it as a bribe just to let her escape her loss. See if his uncle refuses to acknowledge Celia's defeat. It implies he thinks she's superior and just had a bad day. But Leo states firmly that even if Celia had fought him with everything she had, he still would have won. This just makes Leo's mother even prouder. Her brother is equally captivated by Leo's assessment. The fact that this young man rejected the offer simply because he disliked his uncle's methods just highlights his incredible character. You and I just saw true honor right there. Zeiss wishes such a child was part of the Zeringer bloodline. He then signals his knights, ordering them to escort Celia to the maid's quarters, and tells Leo he can stop using formal titles. After that brief conversation, Leo takes his leave. Zeiss then turns to his older sister, proudly telling her that when he returns home, he convinced their older brother to teach Leo the legendary and mighty Phoenix breath. Later we cut to Leo's room, and trust me, you need to see this. First thing you notice is Celia's face, completely red with embarrassment. She's dying inside as she introduces herself as Celia, his new personal maid for the entire week, and Leo, he's enjoying every second. Her calling him master is just perfect. Who knew her elegant vibe would look so good in a simple maid's uniform? It honestly suits her perfectly. But Celia gets annoyed by the praise. Yeah, she knows she's pretty. Leo quickly apologizes, saying he didn't mean to offend. But he admits that he has this one friend who's a little too passionate about beauty. And that friend's habits must have rubbed off on him. He recalls him saying that eternal beauty is simply peerless. If peace ever returned to this world, he swore he would dedicate his life to spreading beauty far and wide. And that friend, none other than the dwarven master smith, Duno. Suddenly, Celia's eyes land on the book that Leo's reading, asking about it with real curiosity. Leo just explains he read it all the time as a kid. It's the book called The Great Hero of the Beginning. Celia's face lights up. She remembers reading that very book when she was just 5 years old. Seeing how much he likes it, she walks to the bookshelf and picks another one, saying that so many of these stories are about Kyle. But Leo argues that huge achievements in history are rarely the work of just one hero alone. He suggests that a lot of deeds credited to one person were probably a group effort. Numerous heroes working together. Basically, he's implying that Kyle's famous deeds were likely shared accomplishments with other heroes, but Celia. Now pay attention. She just dismisses that idea, calling Kyle a total charlatan who probably just stole all the credit for other people's work. At least, that's the common belief. And yeah, she agrees with it. Of course, Leo isn't happy to hear that everyone thinks Kyle was just a fraud who did nothing. He drops the conversation about Kyle, deciding it's time to eat breakfast before his training. Celia immediately snaps back into character. Just like a perfect maid, she humbly asks if she can train alongside her young master. On the outside, she's all smiles and politeness, but on the inside, you and I both know she's absolutely fuming, but she has to keep up the act. She has to maintain the facade because she's dead set on learning his secrets. The secret of his strength, Leo heads to the training hall, ready to oblige. A few moments later, we see a completely exhausted Celia, down on her knees and gasping for air. After round 1, Leo offers his assessment. He says when she runs out of stamina, her reaction time slows way down. Openings start appearing in her moves. She's leaving herself wide open, which is exactly what's happening to her now. But Celia isn't convinced that this brutal training is actually any good for her training. Leo agrees, saying today's youth just lack resilience. Aura techniques these days are so much more advanced than in the past. That's why people have started neglecting their physical conditioning. Aura boosts your physical power, but by training the body, the aura itself gets even stronger. But she refuses to be branded as weak. Trust me, she's mustering her courage for round 2. Another round, charging in, she warns Leo, "You better stop looking down on me." All right, let's see if this works out for her. Nope, her hasty attack fails. He tosses her aside with one swing, sending her slamming into the ground. She's completely frustrated after a string of humiliating losses. Leo then offers her a bracelet, and she eagerly reaches out for it. Little does she know, it's infused with gravity magic, making it incredibly heavy. Meanwhile, Leo cracks a cunning smile, revealing his real plan. From now on, she's going to be training while wearing this very bracelet. The next day, Zeiss is also watching them train. After seeing Celia struggle, her uncle is sure this will be a good experience for her. Before she heads to Lumen, it's a good idea to knock that pride down a peg. He then turns to Leo with some pretty exciting news. He's considering asking the Patriarch for permission to inherit Phoenix Breath. Now pay attention, because the name Phoenix Breath definitely gets Leo's attention. He knows it as the Zeringer family's core aura technique. He's heard only those officially recognized by the family can learn it. Celia chimes in, worried her father would never approve something like that. But it seems Zeiss already has a plan. He offers Leo a deal. If he can pass the Lumen entrance exam, he'll get permission to learn it. Of course, Celia is not happy to hear this at all. To her, Leo is just some kid who can't even use aura. Since the exam involves real combat, it's going to be way too dangerous for him. Leo openly admits he has no real combat experience, which is only true if you ignore his entire past life. Zeiss waits for an answer, and Leo quickly agrees, as long as his parents approve. A week passes and you and I have arrived. The day of the entrance exam is finally here. They immediately spot the unmistakable presence of Celia Zeringer among the students. Everyone is just staring in absolute awe. Meanwhile, Celia teases Leo, asking him if he's feeling nervous. It looks like after all this time as a personal maid, she's really gotten into the role, still calling him master. As they're standing there, a familiar voice calls out to them. It's Gullivan. He's here just to see Celia, but he looks pretty surprised to find Leo with her. This guy immediately scoffs at Leo, thinking he doesn't belong here since he can't use aura. At the same time, he tries to politely greet Celia. But the poor guy gets completely ignored by both of them, like he's thin air. He gets awkward and tries to remind her of his name. "I'm Gullivan Tratton. I said hello when we last met." To his dismay, Celia has no idea who he is. She just grabs Leo's hand to make a quick getaway. But suddenly, someone calls out to them. Two siblings have just arrived. The taller one is Abad Lalin, 16 years old, from the powerful Lalin family. Beside him is Chelsea Lewin, 14 years old. Also a Lewin, Celia knows them instantly, but Leo is completely clueless. Celia quickly explains they are the Lewin siblings from a famous hero family within the Lordran Empire. She looks seriously annoyed. She is not at all happy to see them. She warns Leo, "The Lewin siblings are taking the exam with us. We absolutely cannot lose to them." She couldn't bear it. The Zeringer clan to lose to the Leland family, but that meant nothing to Leo. After all, he was from the Plav family, not Zeringer. When the two greeted Celia, she had no choice but to return the gesture. She then introduced Leo from House Plav, but trust me, his family name is the least important thing here. Hearing Leo didn't hold some prestigious rank, Abad Lalin just scoffs. In his eyes, our boy was a total nobody. The two siblings just turn on their heels and walk off, smugly declaring, "We'll definitely take the top spot." Of course, Celia despised them. She was fired up to completely crush them in the upcoming trials. Suddenly, a professor from Lumina Academy steps onto the podium. Now pay attention, this is where the real story begins. He immediately grabs the attention of everyone in the arena. The man introduces himself as Albai Zeringer, a professor at the academy. Celia's face completely changes. She's in shock seeing this legendary figure. Leo, on the other hand, is totally unfazed, mostly because he has no clue who this guy is. Celia looks absolutely exasperated that Leo doesn't recognize someone of Albai's fame. So she decides to fill him in. She explains that Albai Zeringer is in the hero record, a chronicle of the greatest heroes of their time. Leo takes a second to really look at the professor. He focuses in. And that's when he spots it, an immense amount of mana concentrated in Albai's left eye. Professor Albai then begins to address the assembled students. He starts to lay out the structure for the entrance exam. According to him, the trials have two parts: one-on-one combat and monster subjugation. Normally, participants would just do these tasks one after another. But Albai immediately calls that method boring. He doesn't waste any time proving his point. In an instant, he just incinerates the paper he was holding, a clear message that the old rules are gone. Next, he produces a thick, ancient-looking book. As he opens it, the first chapter is revealed, Prologue, the Wild Forest. And in that very moment, a massive magic circle glows to life under the feet of every single student. The stage was set, but nobody knew what was coming. But one thing became crystal clear. Albai Zeringer hates wasting time. He announces he's combining all the trials into one. A single unified challenge, and it starts right now. To get what this means, you have to understand the hero record is more than just a history book. Its real power is its ability to summon the hero's world itself. A realm filled with the experiences of all the past heroes. By entering this world, you can claim the strength of a hero who came before. Simply put, it's a special system designed to forge new heroes. All the students have just been thrown into this heroic realm called the Wild Forest. The professor lays out their one and only mission. Survive, whether they work together or betray each other, it doesn't matter. They can do anything to stay alive. If you want to give up, just shatter the orb you're holding and you can escape. The rules are brutally simple. After looking around for a moment, our boy immediately recognizes this place. It looks exactly like he remembers. This was an elven forest before it was conquered by the witch queen Saletna. Meanwhile, some students are already making their move. They're all eager to retreat, thinking this place is just some big illusion. But our boy, he knows better. He can feel that while this world might be built from the examiner's memories, everything that happens here is about to get terrifyingly real. And trust me, the dangers lurking here can absolutely take a life if you're not careful. The second that thought crosses his mind, Leo senses it. An arrow comes flying in and shatters the very ground beneath him. He's unharmed, thankfully, but when he looks to see where it came from, it's Chelsea, a girl from the rival Llewellyn family. Looks like she's mistaken him for a member of the Zeringer family. And because of that one mistake, she's dead set on taking him out. Leo quickly sets her straight, telling her he's from the Plav family, but Chelsea, that just makes her more aggressive. She's convinced he's lying since she saw him with Celia earlier. Without a second's hesitation, she unleashes her magic, whimsical. Leo is actually impressed. She's chanting a spell he's never even heard of from his past life. But he can also see that the basic principles of the spell are still familiar. Chelsea, meanwhile, is getting pissed off at how calm and composed he is. To shake him, she unleashes her ultimate ability, but watch this, Leo just blocks it. With a simple swing of his sword, the mana blade she fired at him just vanishes. Chelsea is completely stunned. She realizes he didn't even use his aura. How in the world did he block her attack so easily? Our boy then proceeds to pour salt on her ego, casually calling her attack way too simplistic. He then suggests they form an alliance, promising it'll be a good deal for her. He reminds her that the longer you survive, the more points you get. As a mage, she should at least try to pass one test before getting knocked out. Her reaction is exactly what you'd expect. She snaps back, boasting that she's no ordinary sorcerer. She is a battle mage, and his comment calling her simple clearly hit a nerve. Stung by his words, she channels all her power. She's going to crush him right here and now to prove she's not some weakling, but all her attacks. Completely futile. Leo isn't even in the path of her blades anymore. Even worse, she can't sense a single trace of his mana. She can't even tell where he is. Suddenly, her eyes lock onto Leo, who is standing right in front of her. His fist clenched tight, and I know what you're thinking, did that punch connect? One thing is for sure, her knees buckle right under her, a clear sign of our boy's complete victory. Even so, Leo repeats his offer. The alliance is still on the table if she changes her mind. Before she can answer, the scene jumps to the faculty at Lumini Academy, watching this all unfold on a massive screen. They're all hyped that the battle is finally heating up. Back with Chelsea, it looks like she's in a pretty ruthless situation. Leo has tied her to a huge tree trunk, and his expression makes it very clear he's got some sinister intentions for the poor girl. You and I are about to see how far he'll go. He lights a small bonfire. As night starts to fall, the fire roars to life, and the flames start crawling closer and closer to the helpless girl tied to the log. Seeing the fire, she starts to panic, but she could end all of this just by agreeing to work with him. But this lady is unbelievably stubborn and flat out rejects his offer. She declares she doesn't need anyone, she's doing this for her brother. She then attempts as she unleashes a blast of wind magic, but it's totally useless. Leo already activated a magic nullifying skill. Inwardly, though, he knows he's running low on mana, and the skill is about to fade out. The girl finally gives in, thinking she needs magic to escape this mess. But that's exactly why Leo is watching her every move, making sure she doesn't try any tricks. Without hesitation, he cranks up the heat, turning the blaze into an inferno. Soon the flames begin to lick at her skin, even her clothes catch fire. That proves to be her breaking point. The girl finally submits and agrees to an alliance, but of course, for Leo, mere words aren't going to cut it. He demands she swear an oath on her family's name. The girl quickly complies, vowing on the Llewellyn name that she will cooperate. At last, Leo releases her from the ropes. But before she can fall into the fire, he catches her gently in his arms, and here's where we get a peek at what the teachers are thinking. They've been observing all the students, and so far, Alizarin has not seen a single one who meets his insane standards. He finds it completely foolish that most of the students just chose to start fighting each other immediately. The only ones showing any real strength are Celia Zeringer and a bad Llewellyn, who are actually working together. At least this gives him a little bit of hope for the students' potential. Then his attention shifts over to Leo and Chelsea, who are also cooperating. But his eyes are locked directly onto Leo. The little fire trick he pulled on Chelsea was childish, but securing her cooperation at least earns him a passing grade in the teacher's eyes. This is a big deal since he lacks the raw power or flashy grace of Celia and Abad. Of course, the teacher is completely mistaken. Our boy already beat Celia without even breaking a sweat. Regardless, Alizarin marks Leo as an unexpected dark horse in this whole competition. After taking out a few monsters in their path, Leo and Chelsea decide to press forward. Chelsea is finally realizing that forming an alliance with Leo was actually a smart move. She asks him what kind of aura he's using because she senses no mana coming from it. And I know what you're thinking, but Leo's answer is even crazier. He doesn't know how to use aura at all. Naturally, she is absolutely stunned. As they talk, a monster is lurking behind the bushes, watching them closely. Chelsea spots it instantly and unleashes a devastating attack. This attack was complete overkill for such a weak creature. Even Leo admits that she has some seriously impressive strength, but the way she uses it is just all wrong. Suddenly, Leo detects something strange and yells for her to stop. He notices something unusual in the sand. When he kneels down, he sees dry ground and what looks like decomposed bodies. Without warning, an explosion detonates, but Leo moves in a flash, leaping clear with Chelsea in his arms. The cunning attackers who laid the trap finally step out from their hiding spot. And of course, it's Gullivan and his partners. You and I both knew he held a grudge. He's obviously here to get some payback. He orders one of his lackeys to charge forward, and the poor guy obeys without a second thought. Unfortunately for him, he's met with a crushing blow from Leo, leaving him sprawled out on the ground. Leo stands tall, radiating total confidence, and calmly tells them, "Watch my back." For a moment, Chelsea's just frozen, stunned by how easily he saved her twice in a row. But she snaps out of it, quickly getting into position behind him, ready for the next wave. Meanwhile, Gullivan, in classic Gullivan fashion, makes a desperate run for it. He ditches his own companions, just trying to get as far away from Leo as humanly possible. All he can think about is finding an ally, and fast. As if on cue, Celia spots him from a distance. But instead of chasing, she just calmly walks toward the area he just fled from. When they finally get there, the scene is absolutely insane. The ground is just littered with monster bodies and the students who were foolish enough to challenge them. And of course, Chelsea is beaming, finally reunited with her brother. Celia, on the other hand, immediately starts grilling Leo, demanding to know what he's doing with Chelsea. Leo just proudly declares that forming an alliance was his call. But Celia isn't buying it for a second. She says she'd sooner believe a cockroach could do backflips than believe he actually convinced the notoriously stubborn Chelsea to team up. To which Leo just casually, almost sinisterly, replies, "I just convinced her," and that wicked grin. It even spooks Celia, who's now wondering what the hell he did to get her to agree. Regardless, Leo starts helping the students he just knocked down back onto their feet. Seeing this, Abad asks why he's helping the enemy. Our boy lays it out plain and simple: they shouldn't be fighting each other. Teaming up to face the world's real challenges is way better than all this selfish infighting. Since Abad and the others look completely lost, Leo points their eyes toward the withered corpses nearby, hinting at a much bigger problem. And this right here is where you and I both know the real test begins. One of the students notices all the moisture seems to be completely gone from them. Leo adds that's not the only strange thing going on here. He points out how suddenly this entire part of the forest is completely empty of monsters. It's like they're terrified of something. He figures a powerful high-tier monster must have shown up, scaring off everything else in the area. As the pieces start clicking together, Abad finally gets it. He remembers that Hero Albai's first legendary feat was taking down a high-tier monster. And just then, a thunderous roar echoes from the distance. The sound of something massive, something terrifying. Waking up deep in the forest, and it sounds close, the roar fills the air with tension. It's a clear sign the monster is done hiding. Meanwhile, Gullivan is stumbling through the woods alone. Torch in hand, he looks absolutely terrified, but even in mortal danger, his pathetic mind is focused more on getting revenge on our boy than his own survival. Suddenly, he says it. A corpse at his feet, and then something lurking in the shadows trips him up, sending him crashing to the ground. The shape he saw was a colossal monster. It looks like a massive spider, and let me tell you, it looks hungry. At this point, it's pretty clear that Gullivan's luck has officially run out. Now let's jump over to Professor Albai and the other students. It turns out a shocking 500 students have already failed the exam, and here's the real problem. They need at least 100 students to pass, but only 50 are left. The professor isn't just filling quotas, he's looking for students who are genuinely worthy of his high standards. After all, the headmaster trusted him to pick only the absolute best for the job. Ali believes that true heroes are always forged in times of crisis. He's got his eye on Leo Plav, a dark horse with some serious hidden talent. So the big question for you and me is simple: can this kid survive? Back with the students, they're moving fast, but it's hard to see anything in this oppressive darkness. Suddenly, Celia lights up her blade, yelling that she's spotted something up ahead. Her sword's red glow reveals the horrifying face of a giant spider, busy devouring its latest meal. Pure terror grips them as a mage rushes to cast a spell, hoping to stop it. But Leo cuts in, telling Gullivan to shatter the crystal instead. But it's too late. Gullivan is trapped, about to become breakfast for the spider. He can barely move. He just manages to smash the blue crystal, sending a shock of electricity straight into the monster's mouth. With that opening, Abad charges his Windfang spell and unleashes it on the massive creature. His attack wounds the monster, but it's nowhere near a killing blow. And you can see it on their faces, utter horror at the thing they're facing. This beast is the spider princess Tarantula, and she is not messing around. One student foolishly charges in, trying for a close-quarters attack. He gets swatted down with a single strike, sent flying across the ground. Celia steps up next, absolutely convinced she can end this in one hit. She activates her ultimate spell, firing a destructive, piercing beam of crimson light that skewers the creature, making it howl in pain. But this spider is tough as nails and bounces back like it was nothing. Abad uses the moment to argue with her, saying a mage's raw power is way beyond a knight's. He then unleashes a spiraling wind spell, trying to shred the spider inside a massive vortex. But when the attack clears, he's horrified to see the creature is completely unharmed, its eyes locked right onto him. Seeing her brother is in mortal danger, Chelsea unleashes her own wind magic to protect him. Still, Abad takes a nasty gash from the spider's claw. Though his sister's magic saved his life, she rushes over, relieved he managed to escape. They've thrown everything they have at this monster, but its regeneration is insane. And you can just feel the hope draining right out of them as Queen Tarantula closes in to finish them off for good. But then Leo speaks. He explains this monster is Salatna's daughter, a legendary beast from Arabos' army that once burned the entire elf forest to the ground. What's more, Leo realizes the mana he sensed from Professor Alb's eye has traces of the Fairy King's power mixed in with it. The tarantula once ruled the cursed wilderness. She didn't just destroy the elven forest, she also devoured the Fairy King's most trusted comrade after he rebelled. Back then, Leo thought Luna had actually managed to kill Tarantula for good. The truth, however, is much, much worse. The Tarantula only survived by eating the Fairy King's aide, who held an invaluable artifact, the source of infinite life. The Ring of Life, but Abad, stubborn as a mule, is convinced it's his job alone. If the monster is part of the exam, he's going to beat it himself. So both he and Celia decide to launch a full-on assault, hoping to take the creature down on their own. The tarantula tanks their hits, but Leo knows it's pointless. That thing is just going to regenerate forever. In fact, they're the ones who will run out of mana first. In one last, desperate move, Celia finally asks Leo for advice on how to handle the monster. He tells her it takes two people working together. But of course, Abad instantly shuts that down. He's dead set on beating this thing solo, and Celia feels the exact same way. With both of them acting like children, Leo steps up and serves a harsh dose of reality. If you don't cooperate to kill this monster, you will all fail. And believe it or not, his words actually get through. Abad considers the possibility of teaming up, but figures it'll still take time to coordinate a single, instant kill attack. The big problem now. There's no one else who can keep the monster busy long enough. Now watch this. Leo decides he's seen enough. He steps forward and offers to buy them that time himself. Celia thinks he's lost his mind, reminding him he can't even use aura yet. Leo admits it, he can hold out for 5 minutes, tops. Abad, the magician, is worried their combined attack might still not be enough. But Leo is completely confident it'll work, grabbing a weapon from the ground. He adds that fire and wind elements have a strong natural synergy. That should be more than enough. So despite their egos, the Sword Princess and the Great Magician finally form an alliance. Meanwhile, Leo stares down the grotesque spider. A worthy fight and a powerful echo of his previous life, the battle ignites. Our hero masterfully severs one of the creature's legs with a single, swift slash. The other two students can only stare in shock. He follows up, completely obliterating the monster's face. This is personal. He gets a grim satisfaction from facing this demon from Tartaros again. And here's where you and I get to see why. A flashback shows an elven child running, pure terror on his face. Tragically, the monster Tartaros corners him, snaring him in its webs. The boy is completely trapped inside the creature's sticky prison. All hope is gone. The spider crawls closer, ready to devour him whole. The kid cries out for his mother, bracing for the absolute worst, until a radiant figure appears. A beacon of salvation, a being of pure light. She intervenes, stopping the monster from harming the child. Luna was burning with rage. This thing wasn't just desecrating her home, it had also devoured the elven forest's second in command. Luna unleashes a brilliant blast of light, aiming it right at the fanged horror. Her magic attack engulfed Tartaros, trapping the beast just before she summoned a devastating pillar of lightning. What Luna didn't expect was that Arabos' army would invade and conquer the elven forest too. At that same moment, Leo, in his past life, took it upon himself to free the child, pulling him from the web's sticky grasp. Okay, let's jump back to the present. He stands there, axe in hand, ready to create an opening for his new team, but without his aura, he's seriously limited. Calling out to Celia for help, Leo tells her to use elemental magic and aim her summoned weapons directly at him. He then skillfully dodges. Strike, his speed is just blinding, and Chelsea's afraid he'll get caught in the crossfire. But Leo, he's not worried. Trust me, he has a plan to walk away without a scratch. As long as she moves fast, Chelsea focuses her mana, ready to create any weapon he needs. Leo doesn't care what it is, as long as it gets the job done, so she begins. A weapon materializes. He was expecting something like a scimitar, maybe even a bastard sword. With both in hand, Leo becomes an absolute whirlwind of death. Slashing away at the spider, the second a weapon breaks, Chelsea creates a new one. Instantly, he's wielding a dagger and a battle axe. Leo's skill is just insane. Chelsea is completely floored by his pure physical power. She's convinced he's not just strong, but a true master of combat. Even a bad has to admit the guy's a beast. But he's not invincible. A razor-sharp leg manages to slice open his cheek. That small cut just pisses him off. If he can't even stop that, he needs to end this now. He presses the attack, screaming for another weapon to finish the job. But there's a problem. Chelsea's completely out of juice, and Leo is stunned. Luckily for them, Celia was just finishing up her ultimate spell. She unleashes a massive spiral of pure fire, completely engulfing the creature. It's incinerated in an instant. As the monster fades, a life drops ring falls from its body. The beast is finally down. Celia collapses, totally exhausted but relieved it's over. But even now, she can't stop thinking about Leo's unbelievable display of power. Holding off Tartaros for 5 whole minutes, that's some straight-up superhuman stuff. Celia tries to praise him, but Chelsea jumps in first. She's officially his #1 fan. She says his performance was like something from the ancient hero tales, but Leo just shrugs. He says it was nothing special, but she's completely captivated, totally driven by her ambition. She wants to master battle magic, so she begs him to teach her. Hilariously, Celia hopes he says yes. She wants Chelsea to go through some seriously intense training from him, so she'll finally understand what real hardship is. Meanwhile, Leo grabs the Ring of Life. And just like that, Prince Selid appears in the form of a fairy. Leo restores his memories just by saying his name. Hearing this, he retreats back into the ring, accepting him as the true fairy king. This whole crazy outcome was only possible thanks to Professor Albi and his discovery of the Eye of Mana. Now, the countdown for the testing ground starts. Clearing this stage earned them the Fairy King's pledge, but right before they leave, Leo spots someone he recognizes from his past life, elsewhere at the academy. Principal K. Badian is carefully going over the examination reports from that area. His assistant asks just how many students Professor Albai actually let pass. Given Albai's ridiculously high standards, the principal is shocked. He can't believe 40 students actually managed to pass the exam. Even though that's still considered a small number, but the principal isn't upset. He was only expecting 10 students to pass, at best, so this is still a huge win. In his mind, Celia and Abid are obviously the top candidates for this year. But then he sees it, a recommendation for the annual representative. Now get this, you and I are about to find out the biggest twist. Even Albai recommended someone. Everyone was sure it would be the candidate from Zeringer or Llewellyn. But no, this candidate is a total unknown, someone they've never heard of. And their results completely blow Celia and Abads out of the water. We cut back to Professor Albai, who's watching Leo, sizing up his true potential. All right, let's dive in. Meet Leo Plav, the representative for the Night Division. The principal is floored. He can't believe the professor's praise for this kid. He didn't just call him exceptional. The professor says this candidate has the talent of a true hero. Now that the exam is over, Leo decides to enjoy a private hot sauna, just soaking in the comforting heat. His reward for passing the test is the Fairy King's pledge, but here's the thing. Conquering a hero's domain normally gives you 0 rewards, yet somehow he got one, a total break from the rules. Leo's completely bewildered, and then he sees his mother standing right before him. She hits him with a tough question. Do you know why I was thrown out of the house of Zeringer? While she was trying to save an ally, she lost control, unleashing the flames of Zeringer. But she doesn't regret that choice for a second, not even now. Staring at her only son, she just hopes his incredible talent is guided down the right path. She's also thrilled to congratulate him on making it into the academy. As they enter the incredible city of Lumria, the students are all told to gather up their luggage before they leave the main grounds. Lumiria is basically the heart of the world, and its most famous school is Lumini Academy. Just as Leo arrives, his uncle is there to greet him and offer his congratulations. Leo is completely puzzled by his uncle's sudden appearance. And this is where the family drama kicks in. Trust me, it's a huge mess. A serious dispute has been going on for over a month now. He probes Leo, asking if he knows the real reason for the disagreement. Leo guesses it has to do with inheriting the phoenix breath. His uncle confirms that's exactly the issue. And while his older sister isn't technically part of the Zeringer clan, Leo is her son. Not only that, but the clan elders are beyond impressed with Leo's mastery of the Western exam, which is known for being almost impossibly hard. Leo is then given a special subspace key, which he instantly activates with a command. It reveals a path to a mysterious, ancient tome. His uncle then tells him to mark the book's pages with his own blood. Leo obeys, biting his thumb and letting a few drops spatter right onto the page. Now that he's offered his blood, he can access the knowledge within. You and I just watched him inherit a legacy. Mastering the Zeringer techniques is incredibly difficult. But his uncle is convinced Leo has the talent and will adapt in no time. With this ritual, he formally brings Leo into the house of Zeringer. After the meeting, Celia asks to see Leo at a secret location. But suddenly, a girl comes running and slams right into him. Both of them go tumbling. This girl frantically gathers her books, apologizing for her careless rush. She runs off, and that's when Leo notices her dropped ID card. He picks it up and sees the name K.H. Lo Mueller, a freshman at the academy. Leo finally opens the door to find a very annoyed Celia waiting for him. She immediately lays into him about their massive shopping list and his tardiness. He quickly apologizes, explaining he ran into his uncle on the way over. Her mood instantly changes, and she eagerly asks him what happened. To answer, Leo summons the Zeringer flames, wondering if he's even doing it right. And her reaction, "Oh, you are not ready for this." She is absolutely stunned, convinced Leo somehow mastered the secret technique in under a month. His amazing feat leaves her completely speechless, making her question if he's even human. Later on, the Sword Princess and the Forgotten Heroes spot a ship pulling into the dock. All right, stick with me as Professor Analandu introduces himself as the night class instructor. He rushes the students onto the ship, telling them their departure is immediate. They're off to Lumen, and the journey starts with everyone just relaxing. Leo and Celia look pretty cozy, almost like a couple, which gets someone's attention. A cocky young man makes a remark that definitely ticks Celia off. He's an alchemist. Hailing from the Mora Kingdom, he's a merchant who sells just about anything. He tries to cut a deal with the two, offering up supplies for their academy life. Leo plays it cool, gives his student name, and says he's from the Kingdom of Dald. The alchemist, Thomas, is visibly stunned to hear this. Turns out that kingdom endured the brutal Western trials. But Leo feels something is wrong. The situation is just too quiet, unnaturally calm. Celia just thinks this is the standard welcome for freshmen who pass their trials. But our hero glances over at the instructor, even as Thomas just nods along. Then without warning, the entire ship shakes as a massive tentacle bursts from the water. Now pay attention, because it explodes from the depths, barely missing Thomas. The rest of the students are screaming, begging their instructor for help. But the teacher just calmly sips his wine and scolds them for even asking. He says that Lumen Academy students must thrive when things get dangerous. This challenge is theirs and theirs alone, and it's a huge one, a colossal kraken. Even as this absolute monster looms over them, our forgotten hero stays perfectly cool. He unsheathes his blade and cleanly slices the creature's tentacle. Celia stands firm too. Stung by the Sword Princess's fiery attack, the kraken fights back. It unleashes a torrent of water that completely soaks Celia, then it grabs Thomas. Thomas screams out in defiance. Seeing this, Celia and Leo both charge forward. And I know what you're thinking. Even the alchemist jumps in for his own selfish reasons. He unleashes a jolt of power. He clearly expected the Sword Princess to be strong. She has a reputation, after all, but he never expected another student to be on her level. Meanwhile, poor Thomas is almost crushed by a suddenly frozen tentacle. He yells at the person who nearly ended his life. It was Lo. The girl with glasses who bumped into our hero earlier, and she's an ice mage. She's holding off the monster all by herself and scolds the alchemist. She tells him he's just getting in the way and needs to back off. Thomas mutters that powerful people like her always look down on the weaker ones. Just as another tentacle shatters, the dynamic duo of Abad and Chelsea appear. They've got some kind of deep-seated clan rivalry that is far from over. And yet, the battle mage seems completely fixated on our hero, despite their history. Now monsters are swarming the lake, all of them heading right for the academy. The instructor just thinks this is the perfect initiation for his freshmen. While enjoying his wine, he starts naming the top students: Chen, Celia, Abad, Lo, Walden, and finally Duran Moira, the captains from every single region. They're all holding their own against the threat, but one student is doing even better. But you and I both know who the real star of this show is, don't we? An unknown freshman with no regional fame. His swordsmanship is absolute perfection. He reacts as if he knows every single move before it even happens. The instructor is thrilled, eager to see the boy's full potential in his classes. He's burning through potions just as they finally reach their destination. Stepping off the ship, the instructor expects the students to get ready. They need to get used to monster encounters. They'll be facing them constantly. First up, we get to explore the magnificent entrance hall. The training grounds at Lumen Academy are truly on another level. Spectators are already buzzing, expecting a grand show from the freshmen. The entrance ceremony is about to begin, and the night division is first to gather. Their instructors assemble them, and the captains are called to the front. The academy's headmaster himself is presiding over the announcement. He's anticipating great things from this year's hero hopefuls, but Kayan gets serious. He tells the students, if you want to be powerful heroes, you must be ready to risk your lives. You will always be expected to shatter your limits, and with that, he slams his fist straight into the ground. Pay attention, because this headmaster does not mess around. He says if they can't even manage that bare minimum, they have no place in this academy. Then, just a moment later, his whole demeanor softens completely. He's suddenly this sweet, grandfatherly figure, like he didn't just terrify everyone. Kalyan is the first to speak, wondering why everyone's suddenly gone dead silent. His perfect image as the brilliant swordmaster is starting to crack day by day. Next on the agenda is the speech from the freshman representative, a huge honor. The first years are eagerly whispering names: Celia, Abad, Khlo, all the usual suspects. But the only name that echoes through the hall is Leo Plav's. I know, right? Even he's stunned. He immediately shoots a look at the professor, realizing this had to be his doing. Leo steps up to the podium and starts his address to the professors and his seniors. Meanwhile, the other students are buzzing, whispering about this total nobody. They have no clue what just happened or who this kid even is. The speech finally ends, leaving the audience completely drained, but Leo is immediately put on the spot. They ask about his ambitions as this year's representative. He knows what this is really about. They're trying to provoke the high-ranking students standing right behind him, so Leo gives them a perfectly polite and professional response, capturing the other instructors' attention. They're all thinking this will be a pretty tame ceremony after all. That is, until our protagonist erupts, openly declaring he's ready to face absolutely anyone who dares to challenge him for the position. This bold, hostile declaration instantly incites the top-ranked students, but Leo shows zero concern. He couldn't care less who he might have to fight. With the announcement over, the students head out. Time to find their dormitories. Starting tomorrow, it's a week of exploratory classes. A special grace period. It allows them to try out any class they want. After that, they have to choose 3 subjects to major in. The students are warned. Get some rest, and whatever you do, don't be late for your first class. Leo's room is right next to Thomas's, who is practically bouncing off the walls for his first class. They say their good nights, and Leo just collapses right onto his bed. But his mind is racing, wondering what he's really supposed to accomplish at this academy. He fought his way into this elite school, desperately hoping he could finally unearth his long-lost hero record. The next day in the cafeteria, Thomas asks if he can share a seat with our protagonist. Leo, not really caring, just nods yes. Then an annoyed visitor approaches their table, a face Leo doesn't recognize at all. This is Duran from the Central Region, and trust me, he's here to ask about that little challenge Leo declared. If his big announcement holds any real weight, Leo knows his speech was definitely provocative. I mean, he basically dared a total stranger to confront him. Duran acts like he's some big shot from the Central Region. But you and I know Leo isn't worried, he just keeps sipping his juice. Absolutely fuming at being ignored, Duran unleashes a thunderous kick, sending the entire table flying. But Leo's speed is on another level, letting him instantly rearrange the ingredients and remake his perfect cheeseburger. He handled that mess with such insane style, turning a standoff into his own personal show. Leo then taunts him, claiming he couldn't let perfectly good free food go to waste. Duran, however, is burning with rage, ready to verbally tear Leo apart. He thinks this freshman representative is way weaker, a fact his pride just refuses to accept. Breaking it all up, their instructor calmly throws an arm around each of them. He then smoothly reminds them of their titles, the representative and the region's captain. The instructor hopes they're ready for the consequences of fighting on day 1, and you can see it. The pure panic just washes over both their faces. Now stick with me here, we're jumping to the night department's first class. Celia, for some reason, gets worried about Leo being absent. He finally stumbles in, completely breathless and drained. The exhausted look on his face immediately catches Celia's eye. Making her suspect he was just in a brawl, Leo, for his part, decides to keep his mouth shut. Class is starting. Introduces himself as the instructor for the first-year night classes. Thomas notices that Duran and Leo are already clashing. Meanwhile, their teacher A discusses the three main powers born from mana. First, there's magic energy, then soul energy, and finally aura. And of these, aura is considered the absolute hardest to master. Celia clarifies that aura needs you to lose mana fluidity when you convert it. Her answer is 100% accurate. Magic and soul energy normally use mana in its raw form. Aura, however, absorbs mana and changes it to fit the user's own body. He demonstrates what aura looks like and asks if anyone knows how to wield this refined energy from their own bodies. After thinking for a second, Celia can't come up with the right answer. Then the freshman representative finally speaks up, explaining that using an aura's power requires you to burn mana. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. The instructor confirms he got the conclusion exactly right. Then An asks about the most important part of burning your mana. Leo instantly replies that it's stamina. Totally impressed by this kid's knowledge of aura. I asks if he's ever actually studied the concept. The thing is, he hasn't, which is even more incredible. Someone who hasn't even formally studied aura has somehow deeply understood its core fundamentals. Ready to move past the lecture, suggests it's time for a little practical application. Using his aura, A creates a wave-like platform called the aura step. This entire technique relies on focusing your aura down into your legs. A drops back to the ground, excitedly noting that aura's applications are almost limitless. The other students begin to practice and spar, while Celia playfully pokes at Leo. She offers to teach him the aura step if he'll just call her his big sister. Leo, however, doesn't really feel the need for her help. He's happy just understanding aura's main principles. All right, let's jump right into the fallout. Spotting Duran, the instructor decides it's time to handle the cafeteria incident. Some students, like Chelsea, are totally out of the loop about what happened. And of course, Thomas is there, stoking her curiosity with his commentary. The instructor calls both Leo and Duran to the front, no messing around. He looks at Duran first, demanding to know what set him off. After hearing Duran's cocky answer, the instructor gets a brilliant idea. He wants the Central Region captain to go head-to-head with the freshman representative. In a foot race, a perfect way to settle who's the true leader of the class. And get this, he says both students are allowed to use their aura freely, with no limits. To Duran, that sounds like an unbeatable advantage, an easy win. The day of the race finally arrives, and Thomas, ever the businessman, is running a betting pool. In one corner, we have Duran, the prodigy from House Moira. A powerful master of the lightning aura, his opponent, a total nobody. A kid with no famous background. This is Leo Plav, the guy who beat out all the regional captains. He somehow claimed the title of freshman representative. The students were expecting something amazing from their new rep. But they were let down hard, finding out he couldn't even use a basic speed technique. They all think he got the position by pure luck. It feels totally unjustified. Someone like the Central Region captain seems way more suited for the role. The instructor realizes it's the perfect time to begin and lays down the rules. First one to cross the finish line wins, and the loser has to accept the results. The race is about to begin. Now, pay attention, this is where it gets good. Even Celia admits this competition is going to be a massive challenge for Leo. Duran is a speed demon, not to mention his ridiculously fast lightning aura. But even against these crazy odds, Celia is hoping Leo can defy everyone. She wants to see him achieve the impossible and pull off a huge upset. The moment the professor yells start, the two of them shoot forward. Duran immediately cloaks himself in lightning aura, totally sure Leo can't keep up. But with perfect running form, our boy doesn't even flinch at the trash talk. Just as the crowd expected, the representative of the central region, takes an early lead. It looks like he's going to dominate this race without breaking a sweat. The freshman representative, on the other hand, is already falling behind. Leo starts channeling a faint aura into his feet, trying to pick up his pace. Okay, I know what you're thinking. The crowd immediately calls him a cheater. They're all convinced he scammed his way into the representative spot. But in that whole crowd, united against him, one person cheers for Leo. Chelsea Llewellyn's voice cuts through all the noise, full of encouragement. Focused on crushing his rival, Duran shows off his family's signature trait. Seriously, the dude is as fast as lightning itself. He's a blur. Seeing him cross the halfway point in no time has his friends worried for Leo. It really looks like our boy is headed for a humiliating defeat if something doesn't change. So the young man takes a look at the track, and to everyone's absolute shock, he doesn't burst forward. Instead, he starts to slow down. His momentum dies and he veers off the track, running straight for the walls. Celia trusted him, but this move makes no sense. You and I both know there has to be a reason, right? The crowd is totally lost, but Leo, he's laser-focused, amping up the aura in his feet. With a series of impossible jumps, he launches himself into the air, soaring right off the track, over the grass, and landing square in the stands. He turns cool as ice, watching Duran gain a steady lead. The aura in his feet pulses, hitting its absolute peak. So much power, the concrete beneath him actually starts to crack. And then get ready, because what he does next is just insane. He explodes back onto the track. The launch is so powerful, it leaves a literal explosion behind him. Duran is shaken. From the smoke, Leo shoots forward like a red meteor. Blazing down the final stretch of the track, he even has time to taunt his rival. Zipping right past Duran, calling the cocky speedster a slowpoke. The meteor crosses the finish line. His landing is flawless, stunning the crowd. Duran is just a few feet away, completely frozen. His lightning aura vanishes. A total, crushing defeat. Leo just leans back and flashes a triumphant smile. He won. Yeah, the stands are wrecked, but who cares? It was absolutely worth it. The same spectators who were just mocking him. They're dead silent now, realizing this was no joke. They all thought Duran was the fastest first-year student, period. The idea of anyone beating him was just absurd, and to make it worse, you and I know what happened, but they were stunned he was beaten by a rookie with poor aura control. Almost no one got it, but a select few, like Celia, knew exactly what they just saw. That wasn't a simple aura step, it was a full-blown phoenix step. Leo's win sends Carr and Chelsea over the moon, showering him with praise. Meanwhile, the professor is just trying to process what he witnessed. Duran used his signature lightning aura, a special ability for boosting speed. Everyone expected it, but the kid's raw speed was still staggering. Leo Plav, on the other hand, was slower, but his aura control. On a completely different level, he gathered his fire aura, focusing it all right into his feet for one single launch, one powerful, perfect move. This was the flawless execution of a simple, brilliant idea. Being a good sport, Leo walks over to Duran and offers his hand. He calls it a good match, even admitting a longer race might have been different. But Duran is still bitter. He completely ignores the handshake. Then he deliberately bumps Leo's shoulder as he walks past. The professor thinks that among this crop of students, a true hero might finally rise. The second Leo gets back to his friends, Chelsea is all over him, piling on the praise, saying he was so cool she wanted to train with him. Carr asks Celia why Chelsea's so into Leo and not him. Buddy, it's obvious. The answer is painfully clear to literally everyone else. After class, Carr invites everyone to the cafe, his treat. But Leo apologizes, saying he can't make it this time. Without another word, he just silently walks away from the group. They ask where he's going. His answer, I'm going to observe. Summoning classes, his friends are totally confused, a night student attending a summoner class. And the reason why, trust me, it's not at all what you'd expect. Research, but something just didn't add up. Why did the Fairy King give him the pledge as a reward? See, rewards in the hero's world are a bit weird. Let's figure this out together. They're tied to the world owner's abilities. The reward he got seemed to be for summoning, but Professor Albi was purely a magician, not a summoner at all. So logically, Leo should have gotten a magic-based skill. On top of that, to even talk to a fairy, you have to physically go to fairyland. So whatever reward he got was pretty much useless for now. As Leo waited where the summoning classes were held, a voice asked if he was also a summoning student. Now pay attention, this is where we meet Chen Saya, the Eastern captain and the top scorer. Unlike the other captain, this girl was polite, cheerful, and genuinely kind. They said their hellos, and she insisted he just call her Zia from then on. She was sure Leo was from the Night Division, so finding him at a summoning class was a total surprise. He just played it cool, saying he was curious about spiritualism, if that's the case. Then we'll be running into each other a lot. Then she asked what spirit he had. Zia summoned a gorgeous water sprite to show him. Unfortunately for Leo, he hadn't even made one contract yet. Being super kind, Zia insisted that if he ever needed help with spirit summoning, he shouldn't think twice about calling her. Leo wasn't the type to turn down help or a good connection. And then he made the classic mistake of asking a lady her age. She just smiled and told him she was 17. She also knew Leo was younger, just 15 years old. In his head, Leo was just shocked at how young she looked, even younger than Chelsea. She caught his pause and challenged him, "Were you just thinking something rude?" Which Leo denied, of course. Smooth move. In any case, she'd actually approached him to say how much she admired his race against Duran. Turns out she was in the crowd watching the whole thing unfold. The sight of him flying across that track was permanently burned into her memory. So boldly she challenged him to a race someday. Amused, Leo smiled and accepted without hesitation. After dealing with so many over-the-top people, it was nice to finally meet someone normal. And with that, the Summoning Division's first class officially began. Right from the start, the setting was unusual. Instead of a classroom, they were all standing out in an open field. A few unique-looking individuals were there. Two of them had bright white hair and very distinct faces. They definitely looked like main characters, not just background fillers. Leo looked around, noticing only a few students had gathered. Zaya had already expected it. After all, summoning wasn't exactly a popular class. And just as he was wondering why they were outside, the answer dropped from the sky. A massive, scaly body, with wings big enough to block out the sun, swept over them. The creature landed, showing off its absolutely terrifying form for everyone to see. It was a black wyvern. Some of the students, completely losing their nerve, just went weak at the knees the second they saw the beast. Then the woman riding it smiled, saying, "My wyvern seems to have taken a liking to this class." She jumped down, introducing herself as Yura Marin, their summoning teacher. Yura was stunning, long white hair, a toned body and sharp, striking features. And you and I can both guess the students were instantly hooked. Could become their teacher's personal summon. Leo mused that if Perve Duno was here, he would be absolutely captivated by a woman with a charm totally different from Luna or Lucinus. He'd no doubt be inspired to create even more. Cultured art. Without wasting a moment, Ms. Yura addressed her new recruits. You see, she tells them their presence here proves they all have some innate talent. The freshmen, full of confidence, totally agree. Ms. Yura loves their spirit. So she says they're heading to the practice area immediately. She calls for Carlo, the associate professor, to get things ready, telling him to bring out the griffins. Ms. Yura explains they'll be riding in pairs of 2. Simple enough, right? Plenty of griffins for everyone. The problem is, this is everyone's first time dealing with a beast as moody as a griffin. The second she hears a complaint, Ms. Yura's gaze turns to ice. She asks them, "Are you here to listen, or are you here to whine?" Leaping onto her black wyvern, she lays it out plain and simple. If you can't ride a griffin, just quit and go home, her beast roars in agreement. It flaps its wings, launching into the sky in a pure show of power. And while everyone else is still shaken, one tall student stands there, completely unfazed. Associate Professor Carlo quietly urges the students to hurry up and follow their new teacher. Once they finally get over their fear, most of the students find out the griffins are actually way gentler than they look. Still, some of these creatures were a real handful to control. It really just came down to the luck of the draw. Leo and Zia end up pairing together. She politely asks to take the reins, and Leo's cool with it. And just like that, 2 by 2, the students take to the sky. The ones who adapt quickly are already matching the professor's speed, soaring over the ocean. They never expected a privilege this insane on their very first day. Just as you'd expect from Lumen's top-tier programs, their fear of the griffins vanished. Some students are even playfully arguing over who gets to steer next. Zia and Leo are gliding through the air without a care in the world, with Zia leading the way. She was nervous at first, but their griffin turned out to be surprisingly tame. But you should never let your guard down. Griffins are notoriously tough for first-time riders. Now here is where it gets crazy. Seeing that everyone is getting comfortable, Miss Yura decides to throw them a curveball. She blows a whistle, releasing a high-pitched sound only the griffins can hear. The moment the creatures hear that tone, something snaps. A primal instinct takes over. Their claws extend, their eyes glow red, and every single griffin starts thrashing wildly in midair. The terrified students turn to their professor, not realizing she's the one behind it all. You see, Miss Yura believes that if you can't handle a rampaging griffin, you have no business being at Lumen Academy. Even Zia, a pretty skilled summoner, is struggling to control their beast. As she fights with the reins, Leo calmly places a hand on hers and another on her waist, steadying her. He tells her that griffins are incredibly prideful creatures. Trying to overpower them with brute force will only make them fight back harder. His touch is gentle. Leo subtly guides her hands, showing her how to tame the beast. All right, watch Leo take the reins and push the griffin to unbelievable speeds. They moved with so much speed and precision, they blew right past the professor. And her associate, Miss Yura, was stunned by his masterful control over the beast. She turned to Carlo, asking if the first-year representative had applied for the night major. The records confirmed it, which made no sense. He was riding with incredible skill. So much skill, she wondered if he had his own griffin back home. However, Carlo's files showed Leo wasn't from a noble family wealthy enough for that. This could only mean one thing: he was running on pure, natural talent. It was still early, but Miss Yura was sure she had just found a diamond in the rough. After that chaotic flight, every student finally made it to the island. The Island of Summons, the official practice grounds for every summoning major. A lot of students were sick on the beach after that ridiculously turbulent flight. Meanwhile, Leo was just casually strolling along the white sand, looking for something. The perfect fruit, when he finally spots one, just the right size and ripeness. He reaches up to grab it, but then he notices a single burnt feather. His mind started racing with possibilities, but he kept it to himself for now. After picking the fruit, he offered it to the griffin as a thank you. With everyone finally gathered, Miss Yura called the group to attention. And here's the first twist: a surprise practical exam on their very first day. Many of them were just trying out the class, but now they faced a real test. Miss Yura explained that unlike the other two majors, the summoner's path is different. A summoner's journey goes way beyond the basics. This should be common knowledge. For this class, simply controlling your mana is nowhere near enough. To form a real contract with a spirit, you need a genuine spirit affinity. To command your summons effectively, you need some serious taming skill. The path is hard, it's complicated, and that's why there are so few summoner heroes. Way fewer than the other two, more conventional classes, but here's the thing. The summoners who make it, Let's just say they achieve things other heroes only dream of. The greatest summoners have literally carved their names into the pages of history. That right there is the true appeal of being a summoner. Every student here hopes for that. To become a legend, and just then, Eliza Han from a famous family steps forward. The Herjin clan, a renowned summoner hero family from the north, she steps up. She asks what kind of exam they'll be facing. Miss Yura clarifies that, true to its name, the island of summons is absolutely crawling with beasts and spirits. And since a summon is basically a weapon for a summoner, this exam will test their skill. Specifically, their taming prowess. So with that, the test's objective was simple. All they had to do was tame a summon from the forest and bring it back. And after taming it and forging a contract, they would be allowed to keep it. Their very own summon. The students exploded with cheers. This was a rare opportunity. A chance to claim their own beast, so while everyone else rushed into the forest. Thrilled to find a new companion, Leo calmly walked into the trees. But surprisingly, Eliza starts following him. Trust me, this is where it gets good. You see, the rumors of his victory over Duran had spread like wildfire. Seeing him show up in the summoner class, she felt like she had to greet him. The other top students were watching this whole interaction very closely. Leo just waved her off. He was just trying his best, but being dismissed as if he were a nobody. Enraged Eliza, watching her students from afar, Miss Yura could already spot the key players in her freshman class. Soon after, the other students got to work taming their chosen beasts, but none of them caught Leo's interest. A few students noticed the freshman representative wandering a little too deep into the forest. And trust me, some were secretly hoping he'd fail. They imagined him fumbling his chance to tame a summon, getting a 0, and retreating to some boring night major. Ignoring the chatter, Leo pushed onward down the trail, going as deep as he possibly could. His only guide was the feather he'd seen earlier near that orange tree. Just a few moments ago, its tip had been badly scorched. Yet now it was in perfect condition. He found a clearing deep inside the woods. After making sure he wouldn't be disturbed, he drew out the Zeringer fire within him, burning the feather to ash. A crushing heat surged from behind him. His suspicions were confirmed in an instant. Back in Leo's hometown, life was quiet now that her boy had left the nest. Reina was cooking a meal outdoors that looked straight out of a Ghibli film. Even so, she still fretted over her little boy. It was technically his first day of school, so there was no need to feel so anxious and tense, right? If only Reina could have seen what her son was actually up against, she'd know her worry was completely justified. She tried to reassure herself, Leo would be fine, he was a strong boy. Meanwhile, that same boy was being swallowed by the most searing heat imaginable. Don't blink, because he was surrounded by the flames of a legendary phoenix, one of the 3 great summons. With a voice that commanded fire, the phoenix seemed perplexed. All it saw was a mere child, wielding the Zeringer flame. The legendary beast had only appeared after sensing Reina's flame. Hearing his mother's name, Leo questioned the phoenix on how it knew her. It seems the phoenix had arrived right on time. The legendary beast was incredibly familiar with Leo's mom, declaring that it owed Reina a great debt. I am Fina, one of the 3 mystical summons, the elusive phoenix. She introduced herself, giving Leo the respect owed to Reina's bloodline. Leo Plav returned the respectful introduction with his own. He then asked Fina to explain the bond she had with his mom. The phoenix confessed, Leo's mom saved the life of my summoner, Ellen Lunda. Hearing that name, Leo froze in shock. Ellen Lunda was a true hero. This incident happened while Ellen was clearing a dungeon in Siren. She had lost every one of her comrades. At that moment, her own life was hanging by a single thread. Then Reina Zeringer arrived like a scorching storm to save her. Reina was a dignified knight. But in saving the hero, she sacrificed her blazing aura. Now let that sink in. If not for that event, Reina would have absolutely claimed a coveted seat among the heroes herself. This was the first time Leo was hearing the full story. Still, his mother always maintained she never once regretted her actions on that fateful day. Fina laughed, knowing Reina truly was that kind of knight. Leo changed the topic, asking why a legendary phoenix was in Lumen. Fina sadly couldn't tell him the reason. She too wondered why a young knight had found his way to the island of summons. When Leo revealed he was also learning summoning, Fina felt compelled to examine the boy closer. And upon sensing a powerful aura inside him, we know this is where it gets crazy. Sensing an energy far beyond his years, she just bursts into laughter, declaring their meeting was pure destiny, and trust me, this is how she'll finally repay a debt to his mother. Fina tells Leo to reach out his hand and take hold of her flame. The fire dances on his palm, slowly shaping itself into a perfect egg. Inside lay the child of a phoenix. Fina hopes that one day, as a powerful summoner, Leo will forge a pact with her offspring. Unfortunately, there's a catch. The egg was already promised to another summoner, but Fina much prefers Leo. So when the young man asks if he can just hatch and tame it right now, the phoenix almost falls over in absolute shock. Before she can even stop him, he's already starting the process, and a searing light engulfs his entire body. Fina desperately tries to warn him, this is way too reckless, way too soon. Now watch this, if he fails, he could actually die. With unwavering focus, Leo reaches the point of no return, and Fina is forced to accept it. His courage to defy the impossible without a hint of fear was a trait he got directly from his mother. All she can do now is wish him luck. As the egg begins to hatch, it seems like he and the fire inside it are the only things left in the world. Leo reaches his hand out, captivated by the magnificent blaze. The moment his palm touches it, the small flame explodes into a wild, unstoppable inferno. Leo panics, snatching his hand back as the intense heat starts to steal his breath. This is the power of a phoenix flame. He realizes this trial must be a path for him to finally understand the suffering of this mythical beast. To unleash their potent flames, a phoenix has to incinerate its own body, enduring unimaginable agony every single day. They live with their flesh burning for an eternity, all while regenerating at an unbelievable rate, and now, even if only faintly, Leo can feel their suffering. So he stops fighting the agony. Let that sink in, he embraces the fire instead. It engulfs him completely, letting him share the phoenix's torment. The blaze hits its peak, surging wildly around him. And then the egg in his hand begins to crack. Leo opens his eyes, a newfound wisdom and an acceptance for the pain etched deep into his soul. The fire that had just seared his flesh now gathers around the egg, which dramatically speeds up the hatching process. Fina, stunned, asks if he actually pulled it off. He confidently replies that he did. She smiles, calling him a true genius for achieving such an insane feat. If a phoenix calls you the world's greatest summoner, you can definitely believe it. Even before the egg fully hatched, Fina was already congratulating the young man on securing a successful contract. The eggshells vaporize into ash. What's left is an absolutely adorable tiny chick named Fiora. Fina is overcome with excitement, shifting into her human form as she places her little one safely into Leo's care. At first glance, Fiora just looks like a normal red chick, but still, she's undeniably cute. By midday, most of the other students had already made it back to the beach. Nearly all of them brought back harmless companions they found near the woods. Miss Yura turns to her associate, Carlo, and asks about the time remaining for the others. The students who aren't back yet only have 5 minutes left. Just as she expected, the only ones missing are her 4 exceptional students, and you and I know who is about to make a grand entrance. All right, let's watch these grand entrances. From deep inside the woods, a rumbling echoes. A giant bear comes crashing out, leveling trees and anything that gets in its way. Perched on the back of this imposing beast is none other than the scruffy Chen Xia. She actually managed to tame an aqua bear cub, her future potential knight. An impressive feat, but her entrance is quickly overshadowed by the darkness that suddenly engulfs her tamed beast. This reserved student secured a shadow crow as his summon and is now gathering aura, riding one of its talons all the way down to the beach. Even the most famous summoner families would struggle to tame a shadow crow. He only managed to tame one, and the full contract isn't even sealed yet. Still, he absolutely met Miss Yura's expectations, exceeding all of the requirements. A minute later, students start gasping in awe at the sight of a pristine white serpent slithering right onto the beach with Eliza riding on its head. Eliza arrogantly announces, "I went ahead and contracted this Gorgon snake because my family doesn't have one, basically just filling out my Pokédex." Carlo finally calls it, marking the end of the exam. Thankfully, the last student makes it to the beach just as the time runs out. Compared to the epic arrivals of the other three, Leo just casually walks onto the beach with a tiny chick sitting on his head. While his classmates command fear and awe, his whole vibe just radiates pure charm. His less perceptive classmates absolutely erupt into laughter at the sight. They assume he tamed a chicken. Now they think he's incompetent, but watch what happens next. While everyone else is still chuckling, a cold chill shoots right down Miss Yura's spine. A hushed curse escapes her lips. This kid actually had the nerve to present a phoenix for his first exam. By sunset, the first-year summoning class is officially over, and the students are all guided back to the academy. While everyone else is winding down, Leo still has something urgent he needs to discuss. He adjusts his tie and knocks on the office door. A gentle voice invites him inside. Opening the door, he finds Professor Yura dressed in casual clothes. The sunset's glow lights up her features. She immediately puts her work aside and gestures for the young man to go ahead and take a seat. Miss Yura admits she has never seen a baby phoenix before. She didn't even know such a mystical summon even existed on the Summoner Island. A freshman forging a contract with a phoenix is an absolutely incredible feat. It marks an unprecedented achievement in the Academy's entire history. Miss Yura moves closer to the young man, her presence completely engulfing him. With a sharp gaze, she reveals that she knows his true nature. Leo swallows hard, nervous. Maybe he had shown too much and accidentally exposed who he really is. But all his worries vanish the moment Miss Yura pulls him into a tight hug. She then hails him as a summoning genius unlike any the world has ever seen, and you and I both know she's right. While she really wants to praise and acknowledge his insane accomplishment, the professor believes they should keep his Phoenix contract a secret, just for now. If news this huge ever got out, chaos would erupt in a heartbeat. For the time being, she urges him to make sure he selects summoning as his primary major. The exploratory classes are over. In her eyes, this young man has the raw talent to become a summoning hero, a true legend whose story would be told for ages. By the way, I know what you're thinking, but reality can be a cruel thing. A chance to become her summon. Let's see what happens next. Back at Lumino Academy, the residents were waking up to a beautiful morning, with Khlo drifting through the halls, still drowsy and yawning from a lack of sleep. Carr spots her and playfully warns her that her mouth is going to rip if she keeps it up. Khlo felt and looked completely drained after staying up all night buried in magic books. Recognizing the girl from a few days ago, Leo pulls out Khlo Mueller's ID from his pocket and hands it back. She thanks the freshman representative, relieved she doesn't have to apply for a new one. What she found weird was that Leo was also heading to the magic classes. He explained that since it's still the exploratory period, he was planning to sit in on as many lectures as he could. Khlo, however, is laser-focused on magic, so she's only attending classes related to that. Carr then subtly whispers to his friend that Khlo, this so-called ice woman, is dead set on reaching the top of the magic division. Here's the thing, Carr has zero filter. So Khlo Mueller overheard every single word. Carr immediately felt the air go cold the moment her icy gaze locked onto him. Just as he started to squirm and try to escape to the back, a giant pillar of ice shot up, blocking his path. It was a perfectly crystallized wall, practically trapping Carr in an icy prison. With no escape, Khlo dragged him to the front seats, demanding he sit down and focus on the lesson. Moments later, another familiar face showed up in the lecture hall. Two, actually. As you'd expect, Abode and Chelsea Llewellyn from a famous mage family were also there for the magic lesson. Then the door burst open. Now pay attention, because the vibe in the room changes instantly. The second he walked in, he commanded everyone's attention. As he stepped onto the platform, all the girls in the class started blushing and whispering about their handsome new magic professor. With perfectly slick-back hair, a sharp tie, and a polished look, Len Horses introduced himself as the first-year Magic Division professor. He was holding a thick stack of papers. Before even starting the introductory class, he had a dramatic opening planned. With just a flick of his finger, the stack of papers on his desk flew through the air. They floated down, landing perfectly on each student's desk. For their introduction, everyone was getting a magic theory exam. Right now, of course, everyone was shocked to be tested on magic theory before a single lecture. Professor Len Horses announced that any student who failed to meet his standards would be expelled from his class. I know what you're thinking, this guy is intense. But since they were all Lumina students, he said this level of expectation was only fair. Once the exam was over, they were to give their papers to his assistant, Anna. In stark contrast to the professor's harsh attitude, his assistant Anna seemed like a ray of sunshine. However, the person most caught off guard by this pop quiz was definitely Leo. With just one look at the first question, our guy knew he was in serious trouble. He didn't know a thing about current magic trends. The formulas on the paper just got more and more complex, looking like absolute gibberish to him. As the clock ticked, every student strained to remember every last detail, struggling to answer the impossible questions. With each grain of sand that fell, the tension in the room just got thicker, their futures as mages. Let's dive right in, because these heroes' futures hinge on this single exam. Time's up, the students start talking, and for many, it was surprisingly easy. But even the smartest ones couldn't crack that final question. Leo, though, he's a mess of anxiety. He put in everything he had and still only managed to answer one question. As he turns in his paper, a huge wave of regret just washes over him. He wishes he'd learned more about modern magic before showing up. Convinced it's hopeless, he just gets up and leaves. He can't even stay there. The embarrassment is just too much. He figures he'll have to study magic on his own. Over the last century, magic has taken some insane leaps forward. Spells that once needed a deep understanding of complex theories now just require you to memorize a ton of boring activation steps. The professor starts grading. He doesn't even need any supplies. He just breezes through it with his bare hands. Meanwhile, Leo's thinking that magic's focus on memorization has really dulled the skills of modern magicians, and you and I are about to see if he's right. After flying through the exams, the professor shows his students a taste of real power. He summons a brilliant orb of light, bathing the entire lecture hall. Inside it, you can see arcane symbols and pure magical concepts swirling around. This is the core of a spell he forged entirely by himself. He constructed this complex formula from the ground up, piece by piece. The whole point of this class is to raise students who can create their own magic. That's why he hit them with a test on the very first day. It had 49 questions, each worth 1 point, testing basic knowledge. The last question, though, was worth a massive 51 points. It was all about the fundamental nature of magic itself. Professor Hors hopes that one day, his students will be the ones to solve it. Chelsea lets out a huge sigh of relief. Okay, I know what you're thinking. She's just glad to know no one else got that last question right either. Honestly, she had no idea how to even begin answering it. Looking up, she sees Leo's seat is empty, his exam paper just sitting there. A wave of disappointment hits her. She really wanted to be in his class. It would have been amazing to take magic classes together with him. Right after the professor's passionate speech, his assistant runs up to him. Anna quietly informs him a student solved the 50th question correctly. This news completely shatters the professor's stern expression. He just roars with laughter in front of everyone. The news is that good. He yells out to the class, "Who among you just made history? Who was the first to conquer the 50th question in one shot and get a perfect score?" Hors is absolutely beaming, thrilled at the idea of mentoring a generational genius. But Anna quickly brings him back down to reality. The student didn't get a perfect score. That's totally fine, though. He doesn't let it kill his hype. He just assumes the student probably missed a few of the earlier questions. Maybe they just spent too much time focused on that final section. Then Anna delivers the true bombshell with another quiet word. The student who got it right, she says, only answered the last question, 49 blanks. The professor instantly demands the student's name. Anna hands him the file for Leo Plav. Stick with me, our hero gets called out by the professor, but it's not what you think. It was too late. Even his friends didn't see him slip out of the classroom. He had already submitted his work, feeling completely humiliated. To pierce the awkward silence, Chelsea carefully raised her hand. She explains that Leo bilayed right after finishing the test. His music test score was an utter anomaly. He technically outscored everyone there. But he had only solved the final question and left everything else blank. The center of the magic class's drama was already in the cafeteria, hanging out with Celia. He told her exactly what just happened. She just laughed at him for totally botching the exam. He'd summoned a cute baby bird in one class, only to completely crash and burn in the next. Celia was convinced Leo needed to see he was completely mismanaging his own academic future. She pushed him to focus just on his swordsmanship. He was a knight in training, after all. When Leo brought up stamina training, she immediately changed the topic. But their light-hearted chat shatters when an imposing figure storms in behind Leo. And yeah, it's Professor Horse. He was absolutely furious. He believed this knight had just mocked his entire class. He demanded to know why he left after only one question. Were the questions so beneath him they weren't even worth answering? Leo stood and respectfully tried to clear the air. He admitted he honestly believed he had zero hope of passing that exam. To him, every question, except for the very last one, felt impossible, and he couldn't even figure out where to begin on them. He cleverly reveals that he's self-taught, learning magic from ancient texts, making him totally unfamiliar with modern techniques, and that's when a thought sparks in the professor's mind. Next thing you know, he hoists the kid off the floor as if he were a lightweight pet. When he's released, Leo has never felt such pure bewilderment. But the professor's eyes, we can see them gleaming with joy and a world of new possibilities as he demands Leo follow him. Leo had no chance to refuse, or even ask where they were headed. Professor Horse just grabbed his collar, dragging him from the cafeteria like a kid who just discovered his new favorite toy. Celia was just frozen to her seat. This was her first time meeting the Academy's professor of magical theory. And he definitely left a very strange impression. Unfortunately, Assistant Anna missed her boss by just seconds, failing to stop Len Horse from his usual bizarre antics. She barely had a moment to breathe as she chased after the ridiculously spirited professor. The professor takes Leo to his office, then starts rapidly scrawling complex magic theory problems all over his chalkboard, challenging the boy to solve them. He figured if the kid didn't solve that last question by pure dumb luck, then he must have his own complete magical framework. Professor Horse watched intensely, desperate for the boy to reveal a new kind of magic through his answers. Before 10 seconds had even passed, Leo had already penned the final answer on the board. Shocked and a little unnerved, he asked if Leo had just mentally solved every single problem he had written down. That was exactly what Leo had done. The professor, you and I can agree, had just struck absolute gold after years of making zero progress. He'd finally found a talent worth nurturing into the ultimate hero. Professor Brojo Sadhu was just outside, calmly taking a stroll. All right, let's watch our professor's peaceful day get absolutely torpedoed. His way too energetic colleague, Professor Horse, comes rushing in. He's got this huge, innocent grin, his eyes practically sparkling with vitality. Satoru wants no part of it. He knows whatever his colleague is beaming about is going to wreck his quiet day, so he turns around and tries to leave. But Horse latches onto his legs, gushing thanks like an excited puppy. Professor Albai has to use magic just to restrain him. This is not the first time he's seen Horse go wild, but today he is definitely crossing the line. But Professor Horse couldn't care less. Even floating in midair, all he wants is to thank Albai for discovering the genius Leo Plav. Albai is just confused. Why would a magic fanatic call an aspiring knight a genius in sorcery? Just hearing the words knighthood and Leo together sends Professor Horse into a rage. He insists the young man must become a sorcerer, no matter what. He refuses to let such amazing talent get wasted on swinging a piece of metal. Finally, his assistant and part-time babysitter Anna arrives to handle her boss. While he's passionately arguing that sending Leo to the Knights is an insult to sorcery itself, Albai just drops him to the ground. Luckily for the professor, he is deeply grateful that Anna was there to break his fall. After running all over campus, her usual bright mood has vanished as she urges them to return to class. And speak of the devil, look who just strolls past. Professor Albai gives a reassuring smile, but Leo just thinks that sorcerers really haven't changed one bit. They're all still a bunch of lunatics. A week after that magic theory disaster, the introductory courses finally wrap up. Leo is just unwinding on the roof, engrossed in his book. Far from any drama or excessive noise, and as usual, he is just delving into his own legacy. Because today, Kyle, the supposed hero of the beginning, is universally regarded as nothing more than a fraud. Seeing how the world progressed without him, this massive shift in opinion still weighs on his thoughts. While he silently ponders the passage of time on the rooftop, the first-year professors are scrambling through the campus halls. Without even knocking, they just storm right into the principal's office. Full of grievances, Professor Elon is clutching Leo Plav's application form. The young man's chosen disciplines are listed as knighthood, sorcery, and summoning. All three of the main hero disciplines. After witnessing the young man's insane potential in every single field, the professors are embroiled in a tug-of-war to claim him for themselves. Moreover, a student taking every main discipline, at this academy, that's basically unheard of. They believe their students are supposed to commit solely to one single discipline. But Principal Bodian merely chuckles at their bickering. Stating Leo reminds him of that fictional hero from all those legendary tales. And hearing that, the principal's words make the professors actually pause their fervent arguments. Principal Bodian says he means the fifth great hero, also known as the hero of the beginning. Kyle was the only person in history said to have mastered every single class. Meanwhile, Celia and Chelsea are gasping in exhaustion as they circle the track. Carr discovers Leo just relaxing beneath the shade of a tree, wondering why the girls were training so intensely, especially on a weekend. He agreed to train her, but trust me, nobody expected this kind of training. Just running laps. Leo's logic was that more important than any weapon, a hero needs boundless stamina. And this brutal cardio would forge it. Even Chelsea was starting to believe that stamina was the key for a battle mage. During a quick break, the girls all gathered around Leo for a breather. He handed out water bottles to help them recover. And surprisingly, Chelsea was actually enjoying this weekend endurance hell. She even declared she wanted to run with Leo. The moment Celia heard the poor girl say that, she spat her water right out. The grueling, traumatic memories of Leo's training came flooding back. But since he was running anyway, he decided he might as well lead the ladies. Celia, however, had sworn to never run with him again. Watching the whole scene, Carr finally asked what was going on between them. He just couldn't figure out why they were so close, even assuming they were dating. And get ready for this, because Celia ends the confusion by dropping a bombshell. They were nothing more than cousins. Leo was the son of her father's sister. The reveal that they were blood-related left Carr and Chelsea absolutely stunned. Leo just shrugged it off and started stretching to join the ladies for more training. For the next round of hellish cardio, unwilling to waste his time on all that, Carr decided to leave. He planned to explore a little more of Lumeria City. Celia tried to escape with him, but Leo had already snatched his cousin by the hair. Oh no, today was a training day. Carr could only think that the nobles in his circle lacked every last ounce of dignity. Time passed and finally, the long-awaited class assignment day arrived. Leo made his way to his classroom. Class 15. Inside, he spots Carr, who's already saved him a seat. The crafty businessman had been the first one there, of course. He'd already figured out his class placement. Say what you will about Carr, the guy is an absolute master at gathering intelligence. Another familiar face was also sitting among them. Chelsea was in her seat, though it was hard to tell if she was dead or alive after Leo's brutal weekend training. Carr just had to ask about the hell Leo put the girls through. His reply, they just covered the fundamentals. Now here's where it gets interesting. A pair of seniors glance into Class 5. A room known as the Class of Anguish. They start mocking the students, wondering aloud how many of these pathetic juniors would even survive the semester. But a lazy voice cuts through their taunting. He points out that the two seniors making fun of freshmen were far more pathetic in his eyes. The pair whipped around, and a chill shot right down their spines. A man with messy dark hair and a wild beard stood right in front of them. His presence was immense, crushing. This was Herod Edmund, the homeroom professor for Class 15, better known as the Wailing Wall. The professor ordered the extras to form a chair with their bodies for him. And pure terror forced them to obey. He sat down on his new human chair and called his students worthless failures. Classes 1 through 5 were for rejects, filled with those who got the lowest scores among all the new students. Professor Edmund was pretty sure the students had already heard whispers about him. So he asks his class if anyone knows why he chose to be the advisor for this cursed group. You and I both want to know that answer. Carr cautiously raises his hand. The Wailing Wall must be here to save everyone's grades, one student joked. But the professor already knew Carr Thomas by name and his answer. Perfectly suited for the guy ranked dead last in the academy, Professor Edmund. He changed the question, asking if anyone in this failing class understood the true duty of a Lumini Academy student. Chelsea bravely raised her hand. Our duty is to capture the hero's world through practice missions, she declared. That was correct. And yet all the professor could see were faces of students who would die just moments after entering the hero's world. So wouldn't it be better to just expel these pathetic burdens right now, before they could drag their comrades down? That was exactly why he took over. This was the reason everyone called him the Wailing Wall. As he was terrifying his students, one kid, Leo, stood there completely unfazed. The professor thought this one would probably be fine if I dropped him in right now. With that, he ordered everyone into their training gear and out to the drilling grounds. It was the first day, marking the start of combat studies. Class 5 scrambled, quickly lining up on the track. But while his students baked under the harsh sun, the professor set up a massive umbrella, a lawn chair, and even a few ice-cold drinks for himself on the sidelines. Time to fix the flawed thinking these kids have learned since joining this so-called prestigious academy. And here's where it gets interesting. He posed another question. He asked what would truly save them in the real world when disaster strikes. Nella Carvin, a timid knight with a rare healing aura, meekly answered. My comrades beside me would save me. Wrong, the professor shot that down fast. Professor Edmund stated that the only thing that would save their souls was their own power. Only when you master your skills in the face of death can you even begin to think about helping your comrades. As a follow-up, he then asked if anyone here was truly confident they could protect their allies. A bright, cheerful voice rang out from the crowd, declaring, "I am. I am confident in my abilities." To test her, the professor challenged her. He told the girl to conjure a fireball to prove if she was even a decent magical knight. The girl was the energetic and optimistic Eleliana Ledden, a dual-class magical knight. But after she showed him her fireball, the professor was not convinced she had what it takes, not even close. He even mocked its size, saying it wasn't strong enough to kill an ant. Stung by the professor's sharp words, Eleliana dug deeper. She channeled far more mana into her spell, conjuring 2 fireballs. Warping the air around her into a blazing pool of fire, she didn't just add a fireball, she also doubled their size. Still, Professor Edmund just offered a dry compliment on her spell. Sipping his juice, he casually conjured a tiny orb of wind, challenging Eleliana to hit the small target with her impressive fireballs. But the orb soon transformed into a wind spirit, soaring through the air with a will of its own. It zipped right up to Eleliana, giggled at her flames, and playfully tapped her nose. And that did it. The spirited young knight flew into a rage, unleashing a storm of fireballs, lashing out everywhere, frantically trying to hit that annoying wind spirit. Let's watch them waste their mana trying to land a single hit. The professor interjects, "What's the point of a massive attack? If you can't even hit your actual foe, this exercise is meant to show them their greatest weakness, the inability to use their skills for real. They must refine their powers and break past their limits. That's what being a hero is about." The professor smiles, declaring class isn't over until one of them captures his wind spirit, Sylph. Leo just listens in silence. The professor's words were harsh, but he couldn't deny they were true. Maybe it's time he actually stepped in to catch the Sylph. While the entire class runs around, Professor Edmund's gaze is fixed on Leo Plav. After all the hype around this kid, he was determined to see if Leo was the real deal, or if he was just full of hot air like the fabled hero Kyle. But even with the entire class on the chase, the Sylph effortlessly avoids them. From a distance, Leo projects his aura. You're gonna wanna see this. With one furious dash, he shoots forward like a crimson cannonball. He leaves a pure ripple of power in his wake as his speed maxes out. His focus is absolute. Maybe he really is the first genuine all-class hero. Carr and Chelsea are already completely out of breath, trying to catch the impossibly fast spirit. Then our protagonist appears, his feet and body glowing with a burning aura. Using the refined aura step technique, he launches himself into the sky, right into the chaotic Sylph's one and only blind spot. Combining gravity with the momentum from his aura step, he plummets downwards, leaving the Sylph with absolutely no chance to dodge or escape. His first attempt misses by a mere millisecond. It looked like he messed up his attack, but that smile on his face says otherwise. He was subtly manipulating the aura strands in his hand, weaving a thread that tied itself right around the Sylph's foot. This effectively traps the wind spirit, but none of the Class 5 students get there first. Instead, it's captured by that lightning-fast Brat Duran. As expected, the guy's speed is on a completely different level. But he only caught the Sylph because Leo's aura thread had pinned it down. Still, that smug expression on Duran's face is seriously irritating. Then another person steps onto the field, clapping way too cheerfully. This boastful man is Sin, the homeroom teacher for Class 11. He currently holds the number 2 spot in the faculty's annual ranking. He seizes this chance to show off his class's talent, even offering to teach Class 5. Meanwhile, Professor Edmund isn't even watching the field anymore. He's just lounging in his chair sipping juice, asking his colleague to take over. While Professor Sajan is ranked second, this laid-back man always snags the top spot each year. The students, especially Carr, are buzzing to see the showdown between these two titans of Lumen Academy, and honestly, so are we. Both of these professors have served the Academy for over 2 decades. Professors Aura and Len were actually their apprentices way back in the day. Hearing him ramble on, the charming Nella Carvin asks Carr how he knows so much. Grace and often alienated others, Professor S. Jun let out a superior laugh. And while he had no idea what his rival was plotting by taking over the most difficult freshman class, trust me, Sin was eager to find out. So he proposed a competition. A showdown between Class 1 and Class 5, the game. Lumen's traditional ball sport, Bastara, Professor Edmund shot up from his chair, calling Sin a genius. He eagerly shook his colleague's hand, saying that learning through hands-on experience was the absolute best way. After accepting the challenge, he sank right back into his comfy chair. He left all the annoying details, like officiating, to Sejun. Professor Sejun just couldn't get how he kept losing the faculty vote to this lazy bum. All while his own students were giving him looks of pity. At least the professor addressed his class again, declaring this Bastara match against Class 1 was a perfect chance to hone their skills. Then he dropped the bombshell. If they lost, every single student in the class would be expelled. You and I both know that's insane, and the students were stunned. This was literally their first class with the guy. To make things worse, their opponent was Class 1, a team with 3 captains in its ranks. Herod brushed off their excuses. He just told them to try harder. Besides, he said they had nothing to worry about since they had the official freshman representative on their side. He then pointed to Leo, telling him to pick 6 players for the match. As he processed that order, Leo was certain this was some kind of twisted test. It wasn't just simple disdain from the professor. No, the problem was the students in his class had lost all their will to fight after just 1 week. Their morale was completely shattered. Leo realized Herod wanted to use him to rally the hopeless students of Class 5 who had already given up. Let's be real, maybe there's a method to his madness. The Class 1 teacher used magic to summon the entire arena. Meanwhile, Leo thought that there had to be an answer hidden within the Bastara game, a way to save his classmates from this disaster. Lumina Academy's best and brightest were now staring down the infamous Class 5. Even Chelsea was shaking in her boots. She tried to explain the rules of Bastara, since Leo knew absolutely nothing about it. The game was a brutal combat sport that had been played for generations at the Academy. Hearing that, it didn't sound much different from a regular ball game. But Thomas corrected him, it's not that simple. In reality, it's way more dangerous than just a game. The Sword Princess Celia started mocking Chelsea for looking so pale and defeated. Her taunts made Chelsea snap, screaming she'd never lose to a Zeringer. Leo, on the other hand, was perfectly calm. He told them to chill out because they weren't going to be losing this. Celia was furious. She swore she'd make him eat those words. Chloe was just as fired up, dead set on beating the top freshman representative to reverse her earlier loss. With that, S-Jun called the players to the arena. Leo glanced back at his classmates, asking who was with him. 2 stepped forward, Chelsea and Aleliana. The stakes were impossibly high. Losing meant instant expulsion, which is why they were willing to risk it all for a win. Thomas and the others quickly joined them, and Leo signaled the professor. Class 5 was ready, and with that, you and I are ready to see this showdown begin. All right, let's jump straight into the match. The ball is launched high, and every player from both teams has their eyes locked on it. The game is on. Duran and Leo both leap for it, but Lightning Boy is just a split second quicker. Swiftly snatching the ball and claiming the first move, the game has barely even started, and Leo picks this moment to actually learn the rules. He finds out they're surprisingly simple. He just needs to charge the ball with his aura, then blast it into the goal. Using your body is forbidden. First team to hit 11 points wins the game. Duran immediately unleashes his fury, firing the ball with thunderous speed. Leo barely dodges it at the last possible second. Thomas, however, can't even track the ball. It zips right past him and tears into the net. The first goal is scored by Duran of Class 1, instantly plunging the Class 5 students into total despair. Tide is buckling under the pressure, terrified they're all going to be expelled at this rate. Leo then asks how they can even get the ball back. Turns out there are three main ways: if the ball goes out of bounds on their opponent's turn, or by catching the ball. But as Tide explains the final method, things get brutal. Watch this: Leliana is viciously struck down by an explosive throw from Celia. The Sword Princess just jeers at their careless chatter, reminding them to focus on the match. The situation is looking grim for Leliana. Players can't attack or block opponents directly. So that third way, it's to knock an opponent completely out of the game. And the only way to do that is by hitting them with the ball. Leo's heard enough. He snatches the ball. It's time for some payback. Leliana is officially out of the match, leaving Class 5 a player short. Both professors are watching the game intently. Sai figures any team with a fire element user pretty much has an overwhelming advantage. And when it comes to the Zeringer house, well, their flames are the strongest of all. He couldn't get why Herod would even accept the challenge. Knowing the Sword Princess was in Class 1, he was convinced Herod's class stood absolutely no chance. In response, the professor just yawns, completely unfazed, as if his words meant nothing. Looking at Sin, Herod recalls an old memory of his very first student from the house of Zeringer. A woman they called the Empress of Basta, a legendary force in the game. And here's the twist: Herod gleefully reveals her kid is playing for Class 5. This revelation leaves Sin absolutely speechless. Back on the court, Class 5 was acting totally defeated, underestimating themselves and regretting their choice to even join the academy. That's when Celia notices Leo conjuring his flames. She realizes he's finally getting serious, charging up a blistering fireball before launching it with incredible velocity. It takes Lo's entire icicle mountain just to block its fury. She stands there triumphant, thinking she actually managed to stop his attack. But Leo suddenly appears right beside her, having predicted her every single move. He boldly declares he will score, no matter what. He leaps into the air and smashes the ball with his fist. Lo's barrier shatters like it was nothing. Even Sin is impressed by the boy's sharp combat intelligence. Class 5 explodes into cheers for their first-year representative. The Class 1 professor finally realizes the real match has only just begun. A flurry of goals follows, bringing the score to 9 versus 10, and trust me, the real fight is about to begin. Even getting pushed back during the fight. Finally, the blazing fast Duran unleashes his strike, thinking this one throw would seal the deal. But in the end, Thomas puts his body on the line, giving everything to stop that goal. He barely manages to grab the ball right as his mana runs completely dry. And then Thomas collapses, leaving both classes on even ground. But here's the problem. Class 5 has only Leo left, while Class 1 has all three of its captains standing. This was looking like a huge disadvantage based on numbers alone. The Ice Mage Lo was ready for some payback after her humiliating loss in the last exam. She summons a ton of copies to beef up their defenses. Now pay attention, because Leo is about to make his final move against Celia and Duran. With his feet barely touching the ground, he surges forward with inhuman speed, shocking all three captains with how fast he just vanished into thin air. Leo moves with such blinding speed, he blows right past Celia before she can even blink. He has no plan on fighting them head-on, which means he's going straight for the goal. This leaves everything on Chloe's shoulders. She desperately tries to spot the real Leo among his countless clones. Just trying to process this level of magic leaves her gasping for air as Leo streaks right past her. Chloe collapses, completely defeated, asking how a mere human could use the magic of the elves. In the end, not even the three captains combined could stop him. The undisputed winner of the match is Class 5. You and I just witnessed the crowd chanting Leo's name as his classmates celebrate with pure joy. They were just one step away from being expelled. Asjun is stunned to hear that Herod had pushed his own students to their absolute breaking point just to win. The three captains, on the other hand, are completely crushed by the loss. Asjun knew he had to talk to them. He walks over to Kh-Lo, asking if she's upset about the defeat. He reminds her that tradition says they salute their opponents, win or lose. He praised their hard work trying to secure a victory for Class 1. Sin voiced his incredible pride in the students who fought and even those who just cheered on their friends. His warm words of encouragement really hit home. Herod, however, had zero gentle words to offer. He just flat out calls them losers, which only makes them even more furious. Both classes, no matter the result, gave it their all in this competition. Class 1 showed off some serious talent, while Class 5 displayed unbelievable grit, fighting like hell until the very end. Sin points out that pushing past their limits is what earned Class 5 the victory. He hopes that these two rival classes can learn and grow from one another. With genuine sportsmanship, they shake hands. Celia starts trash-talking Chelsea, who fires her own sharp comments right back. Thomas, on the other hand, is super cheerful as he shakes Duran's hand. Duran just stares back at him with this chilling, empty expression. Kh-Lo was on the verge of tears from the shame. But Leo extends his hand, praising her performance. He believed that with a bit more experience and effort, she could become incredibly powerful. At first, she thinks he's just mocking her. But then she sees the boy's sincere face, and her entire perspective changes. Chloe vows to surpass Leo one day and firmly shakes his hand. A month flies by after that. Our trio is grabbing a bite to eat when Thomas excitedly asks about which clubs they're joining. But instead of joining a club that already exists, Leo plans on making his own. This leaves them utterly speechless. Thomas's most loyal supporter, Chelsea, immediately offered to join the club he was planning to create, the Hero Research Society. A bit of a strange name, sure. But Leo had a secret ambition to dig into the mystery of a forgotten hero named Kyle, who everyone else dismissed as pure fiction. Thomas doubted anyone would be interested enough to join a club like that. But Chelsea, ever loyal, proved him wrong, signing up without a second thought. Just then, a huge commotion erupted nearby, which suddenly jogged Thomas's memory about a major event happening that day. Today was the day the fifth-year seniors were returning after completing a full-on dungeon clear. Turns out, fragments of the hero record are scattered all over the world. Sometimes these fragments actually create dungeons all on their own. They call them hero dungeons. And it's the job of the Academy's senior students to clear these dungeons and recover those fragments. These missions usually take at least 2 weeks, but they can stretch on for months. Leo figures his own mother must have gone on similar expeditions back in her day. Chelsea spots the returning seniors, recognizing them as the absolute elite of the Academy. Among them is the muscle-bound Easter. Next to him, you've got Tu-Ian, a stone-cold beauty from the south, and finally Ulta, the one who always rocks the comfy clothes. But hold on a minute, one key face is missing from the crowd. The Academy's strongest student and council president, Ree, is nowhere to be seen. Thomas is about to explain, but suddenly our boy vanishes. It's rumored he was taken away for being just way too overpowered. Just kidding. Celia had actually pulled him aside in a flash. As it turns out, Ree, the student council president himself, had requested a private meeting with our boy. Leo is totally baffled. Asking why he's being summoned out of the blue, Celia just thinks he's clueless about anything related to how the Academy actually works. She tells him he'll understand once he gets there. So he heads over, taking a seat in what Celia thinks is a pretty weird spot. Then the Sword Princess herself leaps forward to give someone a huge hug. Her brother, and get this, you and I are about to find out her brother is Ree. He's thrilled to finally meet Leo, who's been crushing it in every single class. They all share a meal of dumplings, but for some reason, Celia gets super nervous, admitting she's never even tried them before. She takes one bite and is instantly blown away by how good they taste. Her brother reveals he's been meaning to bring her to this exact restaurant ever since she enrolled. But more importantly, he was dying to meet Leo, whose mother was a highly respected figure in their family. He also remembers that Leo's mom was practically a legend during her time at the academy. She was the kind of student who went to ridiculous lengths to build her legendary reputation. For example, she once publicly trashed the desserts served at the academy. Another time, she rallied the entire student body to storm the principal's office. Celia is absolutely shocked to hear her mother was behind that infamous incident. The brother and sister chat happily while Leo, deeply impressed by Ree, thinks he totally lives up to his reputation as the academy's best. It's obvious Ree is destined to become a true hero. Ree decides it's time for dessert and tells them to head outside while he takes care of the bill. But as they're leaving, Ree turns and discovers something that stops him cold. A strange object in his blazer, with no idea where it even came from. Meanwhile, the Let's Check In on Herod's class, where Eleliana is desperate to pose a question. Without even hearing it, Herod flat out calls her question pathetic. Yeah, this guy holds nothing back. Eleliana wants to know why Class 5 still hasn't picked a class representative when all the other classes have already made their choices. Herod just casually shrugs off the idea. He nonchalantly admits that he, just plain forgot to pick one. Being his usual lazy self, he just orders Leo to become the new representative. Eleliana and Tide have to remind the clueless teacher about the whole democratic process. But they learn very quickly why it's better to just stay quiet. Herod says the new class rep has to handle all the note-taking, so he doesn't have to lift a finger. An announcement comes in. It's time for the Joint Hero Studies class. All first-year students are told to get to the auditorium, effective immediately. Leo asks if they should go now, and the teacher couldn't care less. In the auditorium, Leo and Thomas find Khlo looking like she's been completely drained of all life, a ghost. She's desperately trying to buy recovery potions from the alchemist. She gets them too, cleaning out the alchemist's entire supply. Leo points out she might be overworking herself this early in the school year. Chloe just chugs the potions, brushing off his concern. See, as the top scholar in magic theory, she's absolutely terrified about her position. She's sure that Leo will master modern magic and totally smoke her in that exam, too. Thomas, in his usual clueless way, just doesn't get why second place is a big deal. Chelsea has to spell it out for him. Khlo is the Magic Tower's official designated magician. Battle mages rarely sweat the theoretical stuff. But for Khlo, it is literally her entire world. The Magic Tower is built on research and study, so her pride and her entire future are on the line. Chelsea is getting annoyed, wondering if this alchemist even has any real magic skills. Meanwhile, Khlo still looks sick and suddenly catches sight of something weird. At that exact moment, Headmaster Kalyan is looking at that strange phenomenon involving the afflicted hero's parchment. Ree delivered the hero's page, reporting a bizarre reaction, and you're going to want to hear this. It was so damaged it should have been inert, dead, but it moved. And not a single relic was anywhere nearby for that to happen. The headmaster asks if it reacted after that, but learns it's been dormant since. Kalyan thinks hard, deciding to investigate this thing himself. He tells Ree to go rest up since he just got back from his mission. The headmaster then tells his assistant Alina to bring the hero's parchment to the auditorium. He wants it there during the first year's joint class. It turns out even tiny fragments of it can react if the person named in the chronicle gets close. And in this case, that person is Leo, not that any of them know. Back in the academy's auditorium, the first years are all gathered for their very first joint class. The chatter is deafening, forcing the charming Professor Arton to demand they all shut up, but they just ignore her. They keep squabbling. Arden hits her limit, and well, let's just watch what happens next. A sudden, furious outburst. She gives them a chilling warning, stop talking or else. And just like that, you and I see her sweet act shatter into a million pieces. She tears into them for being so stupid, leaving Arden completely stunned. Then, noticing the sudden quiet, she flips right back to her gentle self, acting like that terrifying explosion never even happened. The other students are drenched in fear, but they're kind of used to this side of her. They know she can be terrifying when she needs to be, and Leo saw everything. He recognizes her power, calling her a spiritualist, an exceptionally rare path. Something almost unheard of even in his past life. Arden then starts the class session. With a dagger in her hand, she begins talking about the hero record and the origins of the hero clans. To unlock a hero's world, you need an object. Pay attention because this object, a conduit, is key to how everything works here. It's what allows a hero's descendants to access that world so much easier. This is also why the Academy safeguards every single one of these hero records. They cherish the powerful bonds that were forged between these ancient families. To put it simply, it's like the relationship between a key and a treasure chest. Leo was completely captivated by the explanation, eagerly waiting for what came next. Arden further stressed the vital role of hero studies, calling it paramount for getting real insight into a hero's world. As the students progress through their academy education, they will all eventually select a hero to follow and complete their epic story. The professor's explanation is cut short when Alina suddenly arrives, presenting a fragment, a piece of a hero record just recovered by the 50-year students. Seeing the enigmatic relic, the entire class erupts in cheers. She parts it slightly before sealing it up once more. Arden wants to hear their thoughts before they experience the fragment themselves. She wants to understand their dreams of becoming heroes. Celia eagerly stands. I want to become the most formidable knight my family has ever seen. Arden was clearly struck by her bold ambition. Meanwhile, Khlo had other plans. She wanted to compile a spell book filled with her own unique creations. Many of the students shared their own aspirations. Thomas wished to serve as vital support for future hero candidates. Finally, it's Leo's turn. And get this, he stands up and declares, "My goal is to annihilate Arabos forever." This declaration stops the entire room cold, not just the students, but the professors too. Arden, visibly rattled, tries to smoothly transition despite the shock. Students from other classes were already chattering about his huge announcement, dismissing it as nothing more than a boast. But as for the professors, Herod was perplexed. He knew that Leo never spoke without a much deeper purpose. 1,000 years have passed since Arabos was shattered into countless fragments and sealed away. However, he'd started resurfacing in various forms recently. Even a single piece was capable of unleashing absolute devastation. But this kid had just declared the impossible. He wasn't just talking about taking out a mere fragment of the demon, but wiping out Arabos in his entirety. Shaking it off, Arden moves on to the hero's record, and trust me, you're gonna want to see what happens next. The class gets a chance to analyze a hero's record before the professor explains how to actually clear one. She warns them about unexpected events, stressing that the professors are always watching, so no reckless moves. The students are absolutely buzzing, hyped to finally get their hands on a hero's record. Arden decides it's time to call up the best of the best. The representatives from each class step forward to the front. Celia from Class 1, Leo from Class 5, and Abad and Chen from the other classes. They recovered 2 fragments from the dungeon, but for this lesson, they're only using 1. The second piece is way smaller, but it's there to show that these things come in all shapes and sizes. First up is Leo. He steps forward, touches the fragment, and the hero record just explodes. The hero's name and chapter are hidden, but the raw power of the record even startles the professors. And just like that, all of them get dragged in. Pulled into a world of pure chaos and ruin, the class reps and professors find themselves somewhere else entirely. What greets them? A massive pile of monster corpses covering a desolate, forgotten battlefield. Professor Edmund immediately sizes up the situation, ordering everyone to get ready. They're now trapped inside a hero dungeon. Now pay attention. Professor Esjun quickly spots a landmark in the distance that might give them some clues. It's a huge fortress wall. Incredibly, Leo Plav recognizes this place from the age of catastrophe. The final defense for the last city, the walls of Gardislan. If he's right about the time period, then Leo is the only one here who truly understands how bad this is. Then he hears a familiar voice. A voice from his past calling his old name, Kyle. It's filled with regret. The voice belongs to a woman this era considers a total legend. And you and I know this is a huge moment. It was Lucinus, one of the original heroes and Kyle's companion. She believed that no matter how foolish it seemed, they would save the world. And they did. Seeing his friend from 1,000 years ago ignites a storm of emotions inside Leo. To face Lucinus again on this dead battlefield, it's something he never could have imagined. Her smile lights up the entire dungeon, so bright it shatters their reality and throws everyone back to the real world. This whole insane event started the moment Kyle grabbed that tiny fragment, the one that was only supposed to be for show. Chenja anxiously asks. The professors what just happened, but they're just as clueless. Professor Edmund, looking frustrated, quickly shuts it down. Class is suspended. He tells everyone to stay calm and leave the hall. As the students shuffle out, totally confused, Leo stays put. He stands at the podium, still gripping that small, torn fragment lost in his own thoughts. He's sure of it now. This is his own page. In his hand is the single most important clue to his quest, a piece of his own life. Seeing Leo so deep in thought, Professor Edmund can't help but be intrigued. Once the chaos dies down, the students scatter into empty classrooms since all remaining classes for the day have been canceled. And that's where we leave it, with Leo revealing they just saw the legendary Lysis, the king of wisdom. The thought that the Academy had actually uncovered Lysina's hero record made Chelsea's eyes sparkle, and trust me, she knew this was a monumental occasion. Eleliana, meanwhile, balled her fist in frustration, kicking herself for not fighting harder to become the class president. If she had, she wouldn't have missed out on this massive opportunity. Carr shot her a look that basically screamed, "You never had a chance anyway." Not taking that jab lightly, Eleliana unleashed a barrage of punches on the poor boy. Hearing the commotion, Professor Edmund stormed in to reprimand them. He laid down the law, either quiet self-study or they were all expelled. Given his unpredictable nature, it was impossible to tell if he was actually serious. So the moment the professor left, the students didn't dare make a peep. They all decided to play it safe. Meanwhile, Leo was wondering why his hero record was in such a complete mess compared to everyone else's. It was so warped that he could barely recognize the world it was supposed to represent. The prompt also hid the name of the world and the chapter of the record. It was like someone had intentionally sabotaged his record, trying to completely erase his entire legacy. Since hero records are ancient relics that allow you to inherit a hero's power, messing with one means you want to stop a new hero from rising. And come on, we both know there's only one person with that kind of motive and power. None other than Arabos. He might be shattered into a million pieces, but his power is still basically infinite. This whole thing lit a fire inside Leo. He was going to figure out why his hero record had been targeted. After that mess, a whole uneventful month of school life just passed by. So now, we jump over to the magic department class. Inside, the sharply dressed Professor Horse was unveiling the details of their midterm practical exam assignment. The first years were assigned the task of creating their very own original magic, and yeah, you heard that right. That single announcement sent a wave of pure dread through the young mages. Original magic is a unique spell that reflects a magician's own individuality, their creativity, and their raw power. In this day and age, with activation techniques dominating everything, magicians almost never try to craft their own spells. But original magic can be an incredibly potent secret weapon for critical moments. This concept actually traces its roots back to the star magic that every elf learns. In fact, star magic is considered a lesser form of original magic. Only one single person in all of history had ever wielded the full, untamed power of star magic, and that person was none other than its creator, the founder of Nebula and one of the original founding heroes, Luna. Hearing the professor's stress, the absolute importance of the upcoming midterms, Leo became utterly focused. Sitting beside her, Leo couldn't help but notice a peculiar-looking book on her desk. Just being near the thing made him uneasy. It was radiating a strange, dark, and somehow eerily familiar feeling. Noticing Leo staring at her book, Leo quickly tucked it away inside her bag. He was almost certain it was a grimoire. Just then, Professor Horse ended the class, wishing them luck creating their spells. As the first years began to leave, Leo caught up to Leo and grabbed her hand. Startled, she gave him an indignant stare, but you know what? Leo just smiled and asked her to join him for lunch, but of course, he had a hidden agenda for asking. Trust me, you're about to see how a secret book sparks an epic rivalry. He reaches out, but Chloe smacks his hand away, flatly refusing his offer. She had zero time for nonsense. Her mind was locked on one single goal: to crush Leo in the upcoming practical exam, and right on cue, breaking the tension. Carr jumps in with his usual upbeat energy, teasing Leo. He calls him a rascal for even daring to challenge the Ice Queen's top rank. Chloe was still stinging from her last loss to Leo in pure technique. But when it came to raw magic, she refused to be second to anyone. With clenched fists, she vows to claim victory in the midterms, no matter what. Leo knew right away that backing down would be the ultimate disrespect to her drive. So, like a true competitor, he offers his hand. He accepts her challenge, promising he'll prepare to bring his absolute best. Chloe shakes it, her gaze laser-focused. I've never seen such intense focus. Carr, the playful one, just watches from the sidelines, completely floored. He's just impressed Leo found an excuse to get the Ice Queen to hold his hand. As dusk falls, Leo finds himself at the massive, imposing Tower of Heroes. And pay attention, this is where the real mystery kicks in. He'd heard a rumor that somewhere inside was Lumen Academy's forbidden library. Getting in there could give him the clues he needs about his own lost hero record. As he climbs the grand staircase, a few of the seniors take notice of him. Halfway up, a voice calls out his full name. It's a senior. She's got tan skin, curly hair, and big, round glasses. She pops a bubble with her gum, oozing an undeniable charm. Then she says she's heard all about the young prodigy from Professor Len Horse. This striking senior is Tu Ian, a fifth year from the magic department. Leo just gives a polite bow, not really thinking much of the encounter. He tries to keep walking, but Tu stretches out her long legs and blocks his path. Okay, I know what you're thinking, this senior has moves. What's a first year doing here? Leo tells her the truth. He's here to see the student council president. His confidence just makes Tu even more curious about him. She insists that if he would just commit to the magic department, he'd get plenty of opportunities inside the tower. She is seriously not letting this go. Even though he's already taking magic classes, Tu finally stops her playful meddling. She moves her leg, and Leo continues on his way, thanking her. But with a subtle edge in her voice, she says she expects him to choose magic. As his primary focus before the semester is over, the message is crystal clear, leaving Leo to figure out what she was really getting at. He just responds with his usual polite smile and keeps heading up. At the top, more seniors are waiting for an elevator to go even higher. He joins them. He presses the button for the 9th floor, but to his surprise and embarrassment, the button stays completely dead. no matter how many times he presses it. He keeps mashing it, but this lift is not cooperating at all. We've all been there, right? Luckily, a friendly voice saves him from being stranded. He learns the buttons only activate when you channel mana directly into them. The voice belongs to another senior, one who actually recognizes Leo by name. This one sounds way more upbeat and polite than two, a kind-faced but imposing man. And look who it is, Lei Zamua, another fifth year from the night department. He flashes a huge, toothy grin at the rumored first-year class rep. As always, Leo gives his senior a polite bow and returns the greeting. Just like two, Lee asks what he's doing at the Tower of Heroes. Leo just smiles, saying he has business with the student council president. Lei's interest peaks immediately. It's not every day you see a freshman at this academy who isn't the least bit scared of him. And it's even rarer to find one bold enough to walk right into the president's office all by himself. Honestly, Lee is impressed by Leo's sheer nerve. He even suggests Leo seriously think about making the night department his main focus. Leo, tired of having this exact same conversation, just scoffs. Finally, after a gauntlet of interruptions that wore him out before he even started, Leo reaches his goal. He gives the door a knock, announces himself, and asks President Ri if he can come in. A warm voice on the other side invites him in without a second thought. President Ri looks like he's drowning in paperwork, even as the sun sets. But still, he welcomes Leo with a genuine smile. Not wanting to waste any more of the president's time, Leo gets straight to it. He asks for access to the Academy's forbidden library. Watch this reaction. The friendly vibe vanishes. Ri gets dead serious. He knows Leo isn't joking. So he lays out just how big of an ask this really is. There are only two ways for a normal student to get into that library. The first way is simple: conquer a hero dungeon. Easier said than done. After you clear the dungeon, it's tradition for the conqueror to personally return the recovered pages to the hero records, which are kept inside that very library. Leo knows that's way out of his league for now. So he asks about the second way in. President Ri lines in. With a sly smile, he promises to spill the secret of this other method. But only once Leo finally agrees to join the student council. A few days later, after all those meetings, the day finally arrives. It's time for the night department's practical exam, a massive event. The whole thing is held at the Academy's track stadium. A huge crowd gathers. Students and teachers have all come out to see the show. And Carr, ever the opportunist, wheels out a popcorn cart. He's ready to sell his snacks to the massive audience. His sales pitch is simple: you can't enjoy a good fight without popcorn, right? Seeing her friend's grand business plan, Chelsea can't decide if she's proud or just mortified. Leliana, on the other hand, thinks Carr would already be ridiculously rich if he wasn't stuck in Lamani. Leo lines up with the other night department freshmen and scans the crowd. Just as he figured, K.H. Lowe didn't bother showing up to watch. Professor Ains stands on the track, staring down his students with a stern look. Without any more delay, he calls out the first two fighters for the opening match. First up from Class 1 is Hall Snave, a shady-looking kid with a smile you just can't trust, and his opponent, it's our boy Leo. All right, let's jump right in. Plav from Class 5 steps into the arena, and the crowd absolutely erupts. Up in the stands, Carr is on the hustle, trying to find some new customers. His target, Professor Sai, he jogs over to the grumpy professor, all smiles. He's keen to make a sale. With samples in hand, he asks the professor, "Care for some popcorn and a drink while you enjoy the upcoming match?" But true to his snobbish nature, the professor just scoffs, as if eating popcorn is beneath him. He figures only the less refined types would ever buy something like that. You know, people like Professor Edmund Heron. Carr senses this is going to be a tough sell. Seeing he won't convince the professor that easily, Carr looks to Class 1 for help. And thank goodness Celia is there. She only needs one look to understand the plan. She activates her secret technique, cranking her adorable charm all the way to max. Then asks, "Professor, are you treating the whole class to some delicious popcorn?" The trap is set. Now all Carr has to do is get the class on board. He signals the rest of Class 1 to cheer for their professor's generosity. And seeing his students chant his name with so much energy, Professor Sai's resolve begins to crack. Sure, he's a snob, but he's also a hardworking teacher who craves his students' approval. The tough professor gives in, finally telling Carr what to do. He agrees to buy every student a popcorn and drink combo, but makes it clear, only one per person. While Carr is busy profiting from his brilliant little business venture. The fighters for the first match take their starting positions. Now, here's where it gets interesting. With a confident, almost arrogant smile, Leo calls his opponent lucky. Lucky to be his very first casualty, Hall Snur immediately picks up on it. The freshman representative doesn't even see him as a real opponent. He was determined. Determined to make Leo regret that underestimation. This is Hall Snafe, a deceptive fighter. He comes from the legendary Snave family line, but before this round kicks off, let's get the lowdown on the rules from our favorite popcorn vendor. You see, the midterm practical exams for the night department are actually pretty simple. They're just a straightforward series of one-on-one duels. All you gotta do is win 5 fights. 5 combat victories, and you get a passing grade. The tension in the stands is insane. Even though they all know Leo is the freshman representative, very few of them have actually seen him show off his true power, and since Leo is studying in 3 different departments at once, they figure he has a huge advantage. An advantage over anyone focusing on just a single discipline. On top of that, Hall is ranked 3rd in Class 1, right behind the incredible talents of Celia and Durin. His weapon of choice is the spear, and his aura feels sharp, almost venomous. Wielding that spear with insane precision, Hall puts his skill on full display. In his mind, Leo is just that arrogant kid who's always buzzing around Celia. Professor Ah gives one final warning. The first to incapacitate their opponent wins. They have to treat this sparring match as if it were a real, life-or-death battle. The moment the signal sounds, Leo stumbles back, suddenly on high alert. And trust me, what happens next changes everything. He senses a dark aura he hasn't felt in ages. But the strangest part, that dark aura isn't coming from his opponent at all. It's radiating from somewhere on Lumina's campus, a vile, sickening energy that spells disaster. Unknown to Leo, this disturbing aura is pulsing directly from the library. And there we find K.H. Lowe, buried under a mountain of magic books, studying for the exam. Midterm exams, another formula gets ripped up and tossed aside. Joining a pile of failed ideas, the pressure is starting to get to her. And trust me, we're watching the Academy's Ice Queen completely unravel. She can't create a winning spell with just her own skills. She's at her wit's end. Slamming her fists on the books scattered across the desk, Leo's talent. It's haunting her, eating away at K.H. Lowe from the inside. She refuses to lose. Especially not to him. This rivalry is pushing her to the edge, her eyes lock onto the books she just threw on the floor, but one particular volume seems to be calling her name. It's the grimoire she's had for a while. With no other options, she's convinced this artifact is her only hope. Her only shot at winning, her desperate need to stay number 1, is leaving her mind wide open to some dangerous influences. Her desperation mixes with the dark energy pouring from the grimoire. It's so strong it even hits Leo mid-fight. Now watch closely. Hall immediately seizes the opening, closing the distance to take advantage. He thrusts his spear straight at Leo's head. Thankfully, Leo recovers. Dodging the strike at the last second, Hall backs off, unleashing his family's signature move. His signature technique, the spearhead, transforms into a venomous coiling blade, reeking of poison. The spear darts forward like a snake. Unpredictable, closing in on Leo's chest, but Leo, calm as ever, grabs it. He catches the spear with his bare hand, No hesitation, not even a blink. Hall is completely stunned, and I mean, you and I can see why. The power to stop that attack has to be immense. Caught off guard, Hall's grip loosens. Leo rips the weapon free, but Hall refuses to let go and gets pulled forward. Looking flustered and totally amateur. Once he's yanked into range, Leo adds to the humiliation, landing a hard fist square on his cheek. The impact sends the snake boy flying across the arena floor. Like a rag doll, Leo might have been distracted for a second, but a pro like him never gets careless in a fight. Absolutely furious by that humiliating exchange, Hall pushes his aura to its absolute limit. Flooding the arena with toxic gas, he yells at Leo to stop messing around and declares the real fight is just beginning. As he pours out more green aura, the arena fills with a poisonous mist. Hall's plan is simple. He's heard the rumors Leo can't use aura. So he'll win by relying on his own, even if Leo has more physical strength. That one weakness should be impossible to overcome. Watching the green mist approach, Leo just unleashes his own fiery aura, grinning. He knows just how rare a poison aura is, as the mist tries to reach him. Leo's fire effortlessly incinerates the poison. Barely any resistance, but Hall's still convinced his technique is superior. He just intensifies his aura, pouring even more power into it. He believes that unless those flames are on Celia's level, he'll win. He's going to win. But while the snake boy is monologuing, Leo has already walked through the poison, completely unharmed. It's time. Time to make this kid pay for his arrogance. Stick around for this. Distance between them with a flourish, his fire completely overpowering the poison. Seeing this wild display of power in the arena, the audience goes nuts, munching on their popcorn, and trust me, they are in for a show. From the Class 1 seats, Duran watches on, his expression as grim as ever. Celia is completely stunned while Chelsea is screaming, cheering for her man. In her eyes, everything Leo does is just the coolest thing ever. Even Celia never imagined Leo could push his flame aura to such a terrifying level. And poor Hall Snave is feeling that power firsthand as it gets closer. He figures Leo's fire already rivals Celia's, the top knight of their year. Who would have thought a guy studying every single major in the academy could be this good as a pure knight? But still, Hall steels his resolve. And get this, he's about to use a move he was saving to defeat Celia herself. He never thought he'd be forced to use it on Leo Plav in the very first match. He molds his entire aura into the form of a venomous serpent. A snake prison materializes and shoots right toward his opponent. Intrigued by the technique, Leo just lets himself get caught by the spell. He stands perfectly still, carefully analyzing the serpent's construction. Hall honestly thinks he's accomplished something incredible here. He even glances at Celia in the stands, a slight blush on his face. Yeah, you and I know that's a rookie mistake. The kid poured everything into this skill, hoping it could match Celia's flames, and he feels pretty good about its debut performance. In response, Celia just sighs, then gestures back towards the arena. In his moment of pride, Hall completely forgot who he was up against. Leo is already boiling the snake prison from the inside out. The serpent's entire body starts to bubble and sizzle from the insane heat. With one final surge, Leo completely shatters the weak aura spell. It's gone in an instant. Hall's eyes widen in absolute disbelief. The technique he worked so hard to perfect just got incinerated like it was nothing. Frustrated, he ditches his aura completely and just raises his spear for a direct attack. Through this entire fight, Leo hasn't even drawn his sword. When he finally does, a single parry sends the spear flying from his opponent's hands. He presses the tip of his blade against the young man's neck. He gives Hall a cold, hard warning: never take your eyes off a flame or you might get burned. As the kid drops to his knees, Professor I declares the winner of the first match. In a spectacular show of fiery power, Leo Plav takes the victory. His biggest fan, Chelsea feels her heart race as she cheers wildly for him. Carr, of course, knew his buddy would win this fight without breaking a sweat. Hall walks back to his corner, finally accepting that Leo is just built different. No wonder he's the one who gets to stand beside Celia. But to his shock, a familiar voice praises his performance despite the loss. Looking up, he sees Celia, a genuine smile on her face in the stands. She was actually celebrating his incredible technique. And just like that, you and I just saw him get a compliment from the very girl he's pursuing. So maybe this wasn't such a terrible outcome for him after all. Praise for days. As the next match kicked off, the professor called Ellen Layden of Class 5 to the stage, and trust me, she made one hell of an entrance. Full of fiery energy, Aleliana immediately demanded to know who she was up against. And when Professor Anna announced Chenzo of Class 10 as her opponent, all that intense energy just deflated. She'd been hoping for a quick, decisive win, but instead got matched with one of the night department's top 3 students. The two fighters took their positions, facing each other across the arena, waiting for the signal. With a gentle smile, Chenza wished her opponent good luck, adding a graceful bow. Even her politeness held a quiet power. Still, Aleliana wasn't about to back down, even with the odds stacked against her. She met the polite greeting with a determined smile of her own. The second the starting signal echoed, Chenza's hand moved with liquid grace, summoning her water aura. Waves of energy began to dance around her, like a calm, tranquil ocean. In total contrast to Chenza's calm, Aleliana's fiery will exploded into a whirlwind of wildfire. A rapier appeared, gripped tightly in her hand. Using the power of her blade, Aleliana shot forward, pushing her speed to the limit with a lunging stab. Chenza braced for the assault, encasing her body in a sphere of water. From the stands, Leo watched, knowing that just absorbing the rapier's impact would be agonizing. And okay, you and I can both see where this is going.